All right, that's what it is. It is Hump Day Wednesday, the 5th day of July. Thank you so much for joining us on the Power Breakfast Show on Power 102 Digital. Yep, full cast in this morning. We just heard from Paul Richards on News Brief. We hear from Wendell Stephen. We got Richard Raghubarising. We got Ruben in the mix. My name is Steve Khan, keeping you company until 9 o'clock this morning. All right, let's take a look at what's happening. I got nothing to tell you about, really. I got a bit of traffic towards Macoya and from the Aranguez area on the highway and getting into Port of Spain. That's just about it. Nothing out to the west. Nothing out of the west. Let's head down south. We go way up north. I got nothing to tell you. Did somebody say school is closing? Yep, school officially closes on Friday here in Trinidad and Tobago. All right. But quickly, let's take a look at the temps and weather for Trinidad and Tobago. It is 26 degrees at both Crown Point and Scarborough, not Scarborough, but Piarco International Airport. All right. Today, the weather forecast for today, they're saying dull, hazy, breezy, windy condition despite the odd brush shower, hazy and warm night. A significant concentration of Sahara dust is in the atmosphere. So please take note. Yep, should be a beautiful day today. Should be. All right, taking a look at what's happening. See who sent us. I did a reset, so I don't know if I'm going to get my message board properly. I did a reset. Miss Ingrid in Tucson, Arizona came up. But you can send us a message via YouTube. Good morning to all those on YouTube as I wave to you to tell you good morning. Good morning. Hope all is well. Good morning to you, Pablo.
Good morning, Steve. Good morning, everyone. Good Wednesday morning to you.
Yeah. Morning to you, man.
Traffic on the Beetham.
Yeah, it was. I found it. I don't know if a truck or whatever. It just kept me back like a whole 5 minutes. And in mornings, every 30 seconds count. So it could be somebody. I didn't see anything, but it threw me off on my time. So I rushed in here. I see Wendell. Good morning.
Morning. I didn't realize you let me. Morning, guys. Morning, Paul. Morning, Steve. Morning, Richard. Morning, Trinidad and Tobago. And good morning, listeners all over the globe. It's a beautiful Wednesday morning.
It is. It's warm already.
I see you really wanted me in the show today. I get invites like crazy. How much I get? About 3?
I thought the computer decided to do a flip this morning, so I didn't know whether it was the same system email, so I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, I felt special. I thought it was just me.
Well, since we have you for only an hour today, we want you to feel special.
I will enjoy the hour. Don't worry. I will try to listen. I will try to listen on the debate.
How is your sojourn going?
Very good. I told you that. I will tell you once I touch down anywhere else outside of Trinidad.
You keep saying anywhere, so that's where you are.
Yeah, I'm still out of Trinidad.
Wow.
That
narrows it down. That narrows it down significantly.
If you follow my statuses, you would know exactly where I am. Because you would have seen one of my statuses. I was posing with someone who calls into the program and messages to the program on a regular basis. And I'm visiting him out here for a bit.
Okay, a lot of people not on social media. So if you put it on social media, you could say where you are.
No, it's status, my phone status, and everybody has my number.
Oh, I don't check that.
Everybody has my number. I see your statuses from time to time.
Once in a while, I put up a nicer one. Yeah.
I've never seen Paul, though. Paul, you don't do statuses.
I don't do that.
Okay. All right. I've never seen Richard, but I've seen Steve from time to time. It's a good way of just getting a message out for 24 hours because after 24 hours, it disappears. So
I guess, but I just never got into it. Anyway, good morning, everyone.
Yeah, morning, Paul.
It's my niece's birthday today, Gabrielle Joseph. Happy birthday, Gabby.
Okay.
That's the daughter of deceased Martin Joseph. She is celebrating her birthday today. Yesterday was his son, Akili Joseph's birthday.
Okay. Today is
Akili.
Today is my good friend's birthday, Johnny Kwan. Morning, Johnny Q.
Yeah, Johnny Q's birthday is today.
Yeah.
All right, happy birthday, Johnny Q. Let me see who else I also have today. Wayne Modest, Andrew McLean, Jeffrey Robinson, and AJ Bihari. Hey, she was an old St. James Secondary school student. What was her name? Vashti. Happy birthday, Vashti. And Marsha John also celebrating her birthday today. Today is July 5th. It's the day after a public holiday in the United States. I don't know what they did. I guess they'd come out on the barbecue. Did they have good weather? I didn't even check.
Yeah, today is going to, well, somewhere here or there.
No, in the United States. Did they have good weather?
They had a mix. They had a mix.
Well, that alone should tell you I'm not in the United States because I don't know if they had good weather yesterday.
Oh, you're in Shogunas. I got you.
United States of Shogunas.
The Republic of Shogunas.
That video with Basil Pandey. Basil Pandey is a consummate politician. He is the consummate politician.
But yeah, he's charismatic. So
no, but he's always been like that. I don't know. I've never
very
seen
charismatic man. I mean,
standoffish or anything like that. And
no, he will stop and talk to anyone. He will actually stop and talk to you before you stop and talk to him.
Yeah, he's always been like that. Because I mean, when Basil Pandey was prime minister, as I said, I used to be a supplier to the prime minister's residence. So I would get invited to any function that they were having, and they had plenty. You understand? And he always was very friendly, engaging, chatty. And even after he ceased being prime minister, when there was there was this war, there was this kind of little war between he and Dukaran at one time when Jack Warner was backing Pandey, and then Jack Warner started to back Dukaran, and I met him at a football game at the stadium, and he was the same way. And Vincent Dukaran was right there. Jack Warner was in the middle of two of them. I said, by God. But he has always been engaging, and yesterday he was very engaging with the Prime Minister, and of course with current Prime Minister of St. Vincent, Dr. Ralph Gonzalez. That video went viral quickly, boy.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
You?
Yeah.
No, that was a viral video. Viral video.
Okay. All right.
So what's happening in the news?
What's happening? I have no clue, CARICOM Summit is on.
Yeah, I guess that takes up the main story. It's on the front page of today's Express. The picture is that of Basil Pandey and Dr. Ralph Gonzalez. And it says, on the eve of Secretary of State's visit to TNT, St. Vincent PM slams U.S. sanctions. So the Secretary of State is coming in when? Today?
Right, possibly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. Secretary of State, I should say. All right. Well.
Geopolitics on fleek.
Let me try to pull up.
A lot of geopolitics getting on bad. So these celebrations continue for SE. A lot of people are really happy with the results. Thank God. And the big story yesterday was regarding High Court Judge Frank C. Prasad's judgment that despite this country being a signatory to UN 1951, a 1951 Refugee Convention, this country can deport people as a sovereign state. And that's not surprising. You see, we operate in what is described as a dualist system, where even though we sign under conventions, we have to actually pass laws to support the parameters or the mandates of that convention. So just signing a treaty or a convention doesn't mean it's law in Trinidad and Tobago. In some countries that do not operate in a dualist system, once you sign a treaty or convention, it becomes automatically adopted as law. That's not our case here. So the judge was right. Yasina Gonzalez needs to do her homework a little more. You understand?
Yeah.
Even though we sign a treaty, we still have to pass a law to make it legally binding in Trinidad and Tobago. And we have not passed those laws. She asked a question about it Was it last week or week before regarding the government's policy on migrants and refugees? Refugees and asylum seekers, sorry, as opposed to calling them migrants. Because if you call them refugees and asylum seekers, there's certain requirements that come with that.
Yeah, they're protected under certain laws.
Yeah. We've particularly regarding Venezuelans, we've called them migrants.
Mm-hmm.
Or legally registered migrants for the ones who've legally registered. You understand? On the two occasions. So Witting is very careful where our state is concerned.
Right.
Which I think, but they said the Minister of National Security answered the question, and he said the government is working and they've encountered some problems in last couple of years ago. I do understand. I just think this is my opinion, policy decision not to make it a priority to me.
Yeah.
Because if any government wants to make anything a priority, they can and will.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Of course, if they feel we want this done next week, they will call the whole parliament out.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yes.
They've
Yes.
done it on a Saturday already.
Yes.
So if any government wants to deal with that, they will.
Yeah.
In very short order. And proclaim in very short order.
There are two pieces of legislation that always come to mind, how quickly I saw this particular government move on it. And that one was the child marriage, and the other one was the cannabis. They moved quickly.
Because it was clearly a cabinet policy decision to move in that direction.
Right.
And expedite the laws to support the policy decision.
Yeah, they moved pretty quickly with those two. And I mean, we were happy for it because we were lobbying for it for a while. You understand? So, but they did move quickly with those two pieces of legislation.
The child marriage was way overdue.
Yes, way overdue.
This state
the cannabis too. The cannabis law too was way overdue too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I see an article here that I thought I should raise because a lot of people still getting duped this way. But a proprietor who received money as down payments towards the purchase and importation of cars from Japan was sentenced to 2 years hard labor on charges of larceny. Because it says Farad Dionan, age 38, was charged with 9 offenses of larceny, totaling $266,000. He was sentenced to 2 years hard labor. Several victims, listen to this, several victims reported to police that between December 2022, that's just the other day, and May 2023, that's just the other day, they paid sums totaling $266,000 by means of cash and checks to a man known to them. The sums represented down payments toward the purchase, importation, and delivery of several types of vehicles from Japan after he led them to believe that he was in a position to do so on their behalf. I don't know if people know that they are a very reputable car importers out there. And you also can do it yourself as opposed to trusting your money to someone else who you really don't know.
Yeah, you can do it yourself.
To these crosses.
And there are dealers you could go by where the cars are already here and you could see and pick your car and you're not paying until that car is in your name.
Absolutely.
So a man could tell me, hey, I could bring in a car for you and you pay me, give me $100,000 until, let's say $60,000. Because if it's 9 people at $266, Paul, do a quick math, that's an average of what? $30,000 per person, right? And you handing up your $30,000 to get a car that you could get yourself
from legitimate dealers.
Yeah. I find it amazing.
But that's how con men make the money. They con people.
I guess so.
Yeah, that's why
they know somebody is desperate for a car, and they target them and they do the nasty.
Yeah. So what? But finally, hopefully an article like that will teach people a lesson. Not to give up their hard-earned money like that.
Well, and somebody was still running blind and deaf and whatever else and get catch. Sad news, a 15-year-old boy was dropped off at the Moncton Medical Sciences Complex with gunshot wounds.
Oh.
15-year-old boy.
Reading news on that.
at the
When it's a
accident and
dropped
emergency
off.
department at the Eric Medical Sciences around midnight with gunshot wounds to his back. Unfortunately, he died.
So no,
Police
they
received a call by hospital staff regarding the victim, but the police, by the time they got there, he had died apparently. They don't. His parents say they don't know who he was with. They don't know who dropped him off. They don't know where he was. I mean, 15 years old.
Well, I'm sure that the security cameras at the accident immediately will pick up the vehicle number.
Really? And you sure they're working, right?
I just said I'm sure.
And you sure they're working?
Not sure if they're working.
Okay.
Not
I
sure
just
if
be sure they're
any.
working.
Well,
I'm not sure they're working.
the question now is who dropped
Enough
him off? Was it someone who cared enough or someone
Where
who
was he? Clearly somebody who cared about him. Whether it was somebody lying with him at the time or one of the assailants who get a last minute heart or because that happens.
Yeah.
Or a passerby who saw him on the ground and bleeding, you know? Nobody knows, but I mean, first of all, you're 15 years old. What you do not at midnight?
That's not unusual, though.
But it's not unusual because at 15 years old, I'm on the street in front of the house, but not far.
Yeah, well, you used to get clout up and sent back home. Not so? I remember the story. I remember that story.
I got threatened with a belt because I didn't get clout and sent back home.
I don't know why I remember that story. And every time I
remember the clout up, yeah. But I mean, it's really a sad story that a 15-year-old is gone now.
Yeah.
15
in mysterious circumstances. Because we don't know if it's accidental shooting or if it's murder.
You know what's even sadder about that? It will go into the deep, dark hole of cold cases.
It will.
And we will hear nothing about it definitively from the TTPS.
Yep.
For months, if ever at all.
If ever at all.
If ever at all. And that, to me, is even more heartbreaking because the parents of this young man will never possibly get closure as to who murdered their son or who killed. Maybe it was an accident, you don't know. Maybe somebody had a gun and it went off. You don't know what we will see. Never. If we find out, I'll be surprised. Let me put it that way. Yeah. I'll be very, very, very surprised.
Yeah, very sad. 15 years old.
15 years old. You're gone. Somebody invest love and time and resources into raising this human being. You know, and we've gotten to the stage in this country where it's actually we're so numb that he dead,
Yeah.
Was he lotto this weekend? That's the sad. That's the sad. Look, we've already moved on from Terrell, who was used as a human shield on Independence Square.
Yeah.
We move on from that already.
Yeah.
And I don't know. To me, these things really bother me. But as a human being who not here anymore, who whole potential cut down.
Yeah. But people I saw a video. I don't know if you guys saw it. It's a foreign video, though. Some part of the United States, where this guy was in line. A lady was buying something at a fast food place, and this guy was in line and started arguing with the lady, a mother. Right? All right, let me back up a bit. This lady pulled up to this fast food outlet. I can't remember the name of the place, and she was a firearms carrier. But she left her firearm in the car with her 15-year-old son. I think he's 15 or 14-year-old son. And she went into this place to buy some food. And in the line, this guy started quarreling with her. So she got into a confrontation with this guy inside of the fast food place. Her son, hearing the commotion, came out of the car and came to the door of the fast food outlet. She told the boy, go back to the car. You understand? But the guy she got into the confrontation with started attacking her and started cuffing her in her face, right? This is in the fast food place, right? The little boy entered the fast food place with her firearm and shot the guy, right? And then when the guy ran outside, he followed him outside and shot him again. They were both charged for murder, right? But guess what? When the prosecutors and the state reviewed all the footage and so on and did the investigation, they released both of them because they realized that the guy is the one who was the attacker and not them. He came in to defend the mother, you understand, with her firearm. But they reviewed all the footage and everything and they released both of them. I pray that their lives have been changed forever, all because of an angry person in a fast food place. And how many times we've seen that? How many times we have seen the level of anger that people are willing to display sometimes towards complete strangers.
Yeah.
That story is replicated all over the world.
Yeah. I should say that we do have Angus Eve for a little bit. Coming up in about 10 minutes time.
Okay.
We'll chat with him just for a little bit before we get into a poll. And of course, we do have a first political debate coming up at 7 o'clock. So news will it'll start a little bit earlier this morning. Everything to be on time. Let's say good morning going out to Ray out in West Palm Beach, Florida. It's hump day. Mo Games, good morning. And the rest of the Paul 102 family. Brenda Isaac, good morning. Son of God in Jesus Christ. What? Oh, okay. Let's just leave that one there. Good morning to you, D. Pierre. Chris said good morning. DJ Sleepy, Sankofa. Quickly, Paul, how was my good friend Deacon Lennox says book launch last night?
It was really, really good. I mean, congratulations to Deacon Lennox Tuesday.
We will chat with him tomorrow.
His book is called An Unlikely Success Story.
Mm-hmm.
And he told the story of how he started at Nestle on the truck delivering Nestle goods as a loader.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he was in the East Drive, he grew up behind the bridge and was down in the driveway, and a man passed on a Friday evening and said, "Find yourself by Nestle warehouse, 7 o'clock Monday morning." And he moved hell and high water and was there. And he started as a loader, ended up as a sales person, moved up to the marketing department, became the Trinidad and Tobago marketing and sales manager and the Caribbean manager for sales and marketing for Nestle Trinidad and Tobago Limited. He was also the CEO of the parent company of Power 102 and Boom Champions Radio Vision Limited. He was also the CEO of another company, he also was the head of CAMCEL, which is the Catholic media house. And I mean, his life and
stage manager,
really a stage manager extraordinaire. He did his in 2013 or 2015, completed his master's at University of Trinidad and Tobago in culture and art studies. So I mean, and he said, when you think about his life story and the choices and the little opportunities that were sent to him that people would have overlooked as nothing, because everybody wants to start big. And what he made of those opportunities in terms of his growth and development and taking care of a family. His wife, Angela, was there, his children, his sons, his grandchildren, and, absolutely amazing. So the book is out now. I mean, Bridget Allison, George Speaker of the House was there. Minister of Education, Dr. Nian Gatsby-Dolly was there. So Wendy Fitzwilliams there, Louis Singh. Tony Fraser co-wrote the book with him. He was the official writer, of course. Brigadier Carl Alfonso was there. I mean, the Archbishop, His Grace, Jason Gordon was there. The UTT professors. The list goes on and on and on. It was a packed VIP room at Queen's Park Savannah, and I mean, amazing story.
Lennox is a wonderful. In fact, once I have to deal anything like to bless my car, Lennox did it. Before we opened the Pet Butler, Lennox and Angela came by and we had our little blessing of the place. So, and Lennox is amazing. Amazing individual. I certainly have to pick up that book. Of course, he has to sign it for me. Him and Tony Fraser have to sign it for me.
He is, because I had to apologize.
Tony Fraser's the next great one. You can't touch Tony. Good morning, Tony.
Yeah, morning, Tony.
You know, amazing journalist. Amazing writer.
Andy Johnson was there. I mean, anybody you could think of, you know.
Yeah. We will chat with
Lennox is the person responsible for having me on the Breakfast Show.
Okay, so he did one mistake.
He was managing.
He wasn't perfect. Clearly, he wasn't perfect.
he had Brian McKnight.
He was only human, so he is allowed one mistake.
Yeah.
I will never forget that morning he called me into the office to speak.
You see you here for a couple of years, well.
Yeah, I was doing afternoon radio, and he said, Wendell, at one time, I wanted to do the morning show with Gladiator. I said, what?
Yeah.
But
He clearly didn't like you.
No, because Gladiator was the character Gladiator was, and they needed a balance, trying to get some balance on the show because
Gladiator balance. Okay, that's new.
No, well, if you knew what Gladiator was spewing, then you would understand the logic.
I know Gladiator was spewing through his whole career.
Then he was
so you can go on. May he rest in peace.
Yeah, may he rest in peace. You know,
so you can look out for the book. You can look out for the book. It's called An Unlikely Success Story. Lennox Tuesday. So pick it up. I'm sure it's going to be in bookstores within the next couple of days, if not they are ready. So pick it up. It's a nice
Lennox always has some soothing words for you. Always has that.
And they mentioned last night, always an encouraging, supportive person.
Always.
Frank Martino was there because a lot of his master's thesis was on his management of Spectacular Calypso
Forum. Yes.
So,
Sexy San Fernando says he was the big boss. And
he was an executive at Nestle too at one time, because I remember when I was in the ice cream business, Lennox, we'd get discounts through Lennox at Nestle, you know, because we used to buy directly from Nestle as opposed to going to buying from someone else, you know. Lennox encouraged that. So yeah, he really was a lot of people, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and still is, you know.
Right, just before we get into Angus, let's just run through the newspaper headlines this morning.
Yeah, I gotta be back.
Let's start with the Express. Those scoring below 30% need extra help. Of course, we had 2,500 so scoring below 30%. Triumph of a single mom, an expose. Jailed after failing to deliver cars from Japan. I think Brenda spoke about that earlier. All migrants, refugees, asylum seekers can be deported. Court rules. 4 arrested for Tobago robberies. Man held with loaded gun at bar. So those are Express stories. And Law Association warns politicians. 2 workers receiving tertiary medical care. And of course, those are Express front page stories. Let's move to the Newsday now. For today, OAS UK Canada commend CARICOM for unity. Vacancies after retirements, 10 teachers to 500 students in Moruga School. Queries on online release of essay results. Woman dies the week after suspected suicide attempt in Aruka. St. Vincent Prime Minister, will Haiti peace talks bear fruit? Entertainer calls for respect for all as criticized of same-sex video mounts. Essay results show improvement. And Prime Minister and Hines in regional security talks with the US. Let's move now to the Guardian. You have to type it in. For today, no TNT laws to protect asylum seekers, refugees from deportation, says High Court Judge Frank C. Prasad. Caribbean energy deals affected by US politics, says St. Vincent Prime Minister. China eager to share hybrid grass with TNT. Rowdy not in support of regional fast ferry. Boy who wrote essay with a broken wrist tops his school. Good for him. Relatives of missing US citizen still holding out hope. Activist vows to fight back on refugee deportation issue. 15-year-old boy dies after being shot and dropped off at hospital. A really tragic story. China eager to share hybrid grass with TNT, and missing Lahokata girls found safe. So those are trending stories in your Express, Guardian, and Newsday for today, Wednesday, the 5th of July, 2023.
Did you say
Right.
the Prime Minister is not in support of a regional fast ferry?
Yes, that is what the story says. Good morning, Mr. Rakabar Singh.
I wonder why. Morning, Richard. You look very priestly this morning. Richard?
You're muted, Richard.
I said morning, guys. No, I have several events to go to.
Okay.
A couple of events.
Yeah. All you're missing there is the cleric collar around that shirt.
Oh gosh, no.
No, just a white shirt. Did you read that homily by Archbishop?
Gordon?
Yeah, Jason Gordon.
A homily?
Well, is it a homily or was it a? Let me.
You mean the tribute?
It was a homily. It was.
Was it a homily? I think it was.
Yes, it was. I think it was.
You mean?
It was
are we talking about the same Lennox Tuesday book?
No.
No.
He's talking about Archbishop Jason Gordon.
Oh God, how was Lennox's thing yesterday? And did anybody go? Because I
went. It was excellent.
Just described it in detail.
Yeah, I couldn't get there in time.
Yeah. But what you wanna clear up that issue of the homily, because I don't know, a homily is normally done at a funeral or some sort of service or some sort of thing.
It was at a service of sorts at Living Water.
Oh no, I don't know it.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if I could locate it. Hold on.
That'd be nice.
Right. So, on gender ideology, Christians call to speak the truth, show mercy, compassion, and love. So, he told the faithful yesterday. Now, this wasn't, when I say yesterday, it's not actually yesterday. So, but he talked about, he referencing that whole issue with that silly book that people went up in arms for, even though the book apparently wasn't just about a gay individual in the book. It was also about a guy in a wheelchair and also an albino. It was showing about diversity and, you know, you should include everybody, basically. But what I thought interesting in this dissertation, in terms, if I want to call it that, or whatever it is that you want to call it, that Archbishop Gordon talked about, he said members of course, this was considering the book particularly, but he's referencing it generally. The gospel, this is part of what he said, the gospel and the pervading Western culture are heading into two very different directions. Until we can accept that as the fact and foundation of everything that we are living, we are going to be in denial. We are going to be thinking we are living in a different time. He said during Mass, it was Mass at the Living Water Community Chapel on Sunday, June 25th. The martyrs of the gospel taught there is something more important than physical life. Archbishop Gordon pointed to the debate on what is truth and culture, which does not believe in afterlife or values that are worth dying for. What is called free speech today is for those who support the newer, modern misvalues going in other directions. Persons standing up for biblical values are labeled as haters and promoting hate speech. Discussing the messages in the Gospel of Matthew 6:10, 26 to 33, he called on Catholics to be confident in what they believed. He said Jesus speaks on the possibility of martyrdom as more important than preserving life, but also of God's providential love. I didn't understand I understand what he is saying, but it's I find highly disturbing.
You mean what he's saying?
Yes. Discussing the messages in the Gospel of Matthew 10, 26 to 33, he called on Catholics to be confident in what they believed in. He said Jesus speaks on the possibility of martyrdom as more important than preserving life, but then
Oh,
tries to twist it back by saying, but also of God's providential love. What the
well,
hell are you saying?
yeah, martyrdom is more important than preserving life. Is that what you just
Yes,
said?
yes. It is God's providence that helps the faithful to remain unfazed by criticism, being despised, and bad treatment. It's small stuff. He commented, losing sight of God, however, has consequences. Losing sight of the poor human dignity, truth, and what is good reason in society. Then he went to St. Ignatius. I don't know how he reached there, but that's where he went. Said the devil is the enemy of human nature. Everything that makes us truly human, the devil is against it. And the first thing that we learned in the Bible about being truly human was that in the beginning, God created them male and female. Then he went on.
It's a mixed message.
Well, it's a message basically. It's a message of, how should I say it, that promotes non-inclusivity, specifically directed because its genesis is in that
book.
silly book that people went into some hyperventilating mood about. Its message is really connected to that. I found some of his words highly disturbing, disappointing, and certainly nothing like Archbishop Harris before him.
Yeah, is a mixed message coming out of the Catholic community. Anyway,
gentlemen,
we have some symbols there.
Yeah, we got to move. We're really on a strict time, so let's get into our morning poll and get the results of our poll.
But didn't you say we were going to talk to Angus Eve?
Yeah, I just spoke to Angus. Something has come up, and he doesn't have the time right now. He said after 7, and I did say that we do have our debate, so we'll
accommodate him after 7.
Yeah,
I guess tomorrow.
So we'll reschedule till tomorrow. So he'll buzz me later.
All right, my suggested poll this morning, and since we have many of the smaller parties on later on at 7 this morning with our first of 3 debates, if the audience thinks any of these smaller parties will actually win areas that they're contesting.
Okay. Do you think these?
That's what it comes down to, winning areas. That's so.
Yeah, winning districts.
Whether you're in an accommodation or not, if you're going to win a district.
Yeah.
Would you all agree with that?
That's fine. We can do that heading up to our morning poll. But let me give you the results of poll from yesterday, where we asked you, do you think Angus Eve should be replaced as head coach of the Trinidad and Tobago national football team? That was our poll yesterday. And before I give you the results, I just want to let you know it's all about him. Men 40 years and over, the Ministry of Health is offering free prostate cancer screening on July 8th and 9th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the following locations: the Queen's Park Savannah, Mount Hope Women's Hospital, Sangre Grande Enhanced Health Center, Point Fortin Hospital, San Fernando Teaching Hospital, and the Men's Health Clinic at the Old Scarborough Hospital in Tobago. No appointment needed, so get screened this weekend. Visit the Ministry of Health's website or social media pages for further information. All right, the results. Do you think Angus Eve should be replaced as head coach of the Trinidad and Tobago national football team? 72%, 72 said yes. All right, now vote on our morning poll. This morning's poll, once again. Do you think any of the smaller parties will win districts in the local government elections in 2023? That's our poll this morning. Are you seeing it on your screen? So 222 talk, 222-8255. North Americans, 866-525-1099. People on the web and the app, you know what to do. Send your votes by the messaging portal on those platforms. People in other parts of the planet, 1-868-222 talk. 222-8255. Do you think any of the smaller parties will win districts in the local government election 2023? That's our poll.
And we're talking NTA, PEP, PEP, PDP. I think
we should actually say any of the smaller parties or individuals because they are independent.
Yes, they are independent.
Good one.
Yes.
Good one. All right. 222.
Add that to accommodate.
Yeah. 8255. North Americans, toll free, 866-525-1099. Send your answer via our mobile app or website. And on our YouTube page as well. Good morning to DS Lip Celeste. He says, hi, Rich. All right. Yeah. All right. Once again, do you think any of the smaller parties or independents will win districts in the local government elections carded for August 14th? All right. That's our poll.
Richard, you writing?
All right. Got a call. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Steve. My answer is no.
No. All right. Thank you. Thank you so
Just
much.
that you all know, since Wendell is out of the country, I'll be also absent next week.
You mean out of the country or off air?
Out of the country. And
Well,
absent
but you-
because the
but
time
you-
zone is so off. By the time you all get going, I'll be on the road in a conference.
Oh, so you're saying you're off air?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
Oh.
out of the country.
My bags are packed already, Paul.
because wherever I go, I just be on air.
Well, it depends on the time zone you're in.
Yeah.
Where I will be 5 hours ahead.
Okay, so you're going in Europe.
Yeah. Carol Guevara. Good morning to you, Carol. Says no to the poll. Let's have some other calls coming through. Good morning.
Yeah,
Where are you calling from?
Hey, do our time zone, I don't know.
No, not at all.
All right, Arima. Not at all. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, caller.
Morning, Steve.
Morning.
No.
No. All right.
Yeah, no pay to it, Ram.
Right?
Or are you so committed to the larger two parties? Has an independent ever won? When did you the historian, the local government, has an independent or smaller party ever won a district?
Nope. Well, if you considered COP a smaller partner back then, COP would have won districts in 2010.
CFP won districts, that's right. But it was a smaller, well, not when they started. They came up with kind of big bang. So that wasn't a smaller party back then.
ILP also won districts in back then too. When they not in 2010, but when they were formed, they won some districts. So much so that they could have almost have the mayor Chaguanas at one time.
Yeah, well,
As a matter of fact-
Jackie really did in that area. Well,
As a matter of
sorry.
fact, the man who became mayor Chaguanas actually contested for the ILP, Faik Mohammed. He contested for the ILP and eventually became mayor of Chaguanas.
All right. Just a
So
little
our
bit
question
of
this morning,
Just
do
a
you
little bit
think any
of
of the smaller
FYI.
parties or independents will win districts in the local government election 2023?
You see, just a little FYI. Jay-Z's mother, Gloria Carter, married her longtime partner of Roxanne Wilshire. And of course, Roxanne is Trinidadian.
Yep.
And of course, one of the newspapers had to put she from Holy Name.
Oh,
Yeah, I saw that.
seriously. I didn't see
Whose
that.
name?
How that relevant? How is it relevant?
It says
Holy name. Maybe holy name girls are marrying, getting married.
Who
Because
got
I
married?
didn't see
You
the
have always gotten married. I don't understand your
didn't.
point.
But I didn't see the relevance of it either. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, how does it end up in this story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning to you, Josie Richardson. My answer to the poll is no. Good morning, Marcia Rock, as well. Thank you so much. All right. Once again, our morning poll. Do you think any of the smaller parties or independents will win districts in the local government elections? Yes or no? You have 4 minutes. News starts at 6:52 this morning.
But I think
4 minutes.
ILP and MND, Gavin Nicholas' party, they're not actually going as a party on their party symbol. I think they're going under the UNC symbol. Is that what is that?
Yes.
Is that what
That's what
Khadija
Khadija
Amin
Amin told us,
said? Yeah, I heard Khadija Amin say it.
which I don't understand at all, to be very honest.
Yeah. So
Is it that they cross the floor? Is it that they? It's very confusing.
They're all
So most
UNC,
parties
yeah.
have rules against people doing that sort of thing. But I guess if you have an accommodation, you can do what you want. So
Yeah.
All of them anti-PNM. That's the symbol they should have. Anti-PNM. That's the name of the party.
And what is the symbol for that, Wendell?
They should forget this. I don't know, something very hateful, and probably dark.
Do you have to be hateful to be not a member, not aligned to the PNM, do?
No. Anti-PNM. I know what I'm saying, They hate Keith Rowley. All of them have one thing in common. They hate
that is not possibly a fair statement.
Oh,
I don't think not everybody who is not aligned to the PNM hates Keith Rowley. That is a very unfair statement.
Well, that is my opinion. ILP people, MND, UNC, NTA, all of them. Listen, Gary Griffith sends a message every day, some anti-Rowley thing now. Every day. I tell him, you promoting Keith Rowley more than anybody else.
But is Gary Griffith every other non-PNM party?
All right, gentlemen, let's get back into the calls here.
Yeah.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Judge.
Morning.
Wendell, I agree with you.
Surprise.
No, I agree with Wendell. The brain sharing with Dr. Rowley. The sleeping, eating, drinking, waking Dr. Rowley.
All they need to do is come together and call the party anti-Rowley, anti-PNM. And they might
Zina, you're voting on the poll?
She voted. She said no.
She did. Okay. Carl Jack. Good morning to you, Carl. Blessed morning to all. Yes, they will.
Somebody suggested a symbol for them here. I can't say it.
Edward Aliong. What?
Okay, anti-PNM. Just name your amalgamation anti-PNM. No coalition.
Good morning to ardent listeners. CJ from New York, good morning. GNC Auto Security, good morning. Wendy Ann says no. Mr. Carapo, no to the poll. GB says no. Stretch, I hope not, but no. Big guy out in New York says yes to the poll. Lorna, good morning, Lorna. Morning, Indy and Carly, no to the poll. Reno Buru Jennings also says no to the poll.
They successfully used that symbol in 2010. Remember that? The old man who do Mr. Manning that? You remember? And he crossed his wrist at Mr. Manning. Remember that? They could use that symbol, anti-PNM, and call the amalgamation anti-PNM. And stop pussyfooting and pretending that they're all up about this country. They're not.
So anybody who doesn't happen to align with the PNM is not about Trinidad and Tobago.
You're saying something completely different.
That's your default statement.
You're saying something completely different to me. They hate the PNM.
I don't know if I agree with that. As a matter of fact, I disagree with it. That just because you are not aligned to the PNM, you hate Dr. Keith Rowley.
No,
that is crazy.
I said that. There are people in the UNC who I think have the country's interests at heart. I honestly believe they have.
Well, I'm glad you know that has to be true.
No, I know some of them. Right? I know some of them actually are, but they just go with the default position of listening to the hate. The hate for one man.
Steve, calls, votes.
Waiting on Evie right now, actually.
Be the savior.
Right. GNC Auto Security says no. Upstate Terry, I vote yes. Good morning to Anthony Tinto.
Okay, Tinto.
Anthony Tinto. Leonard Naipaul in North Carolina. Good morning to you. Paula says no. All right, thank you, Paula. Said when they like Kankalang. All right, let's get into major news. Early to accommodate.
Thank you, Wendell and Richard for logging on.
So let me say my goodbyes, guys. Have a wonderful day. Remember to let go and let God.
After all that about here, let go and let God.
Thank you, gentlemen. Yeah. Talk to you guys tomorrow morning. Let's get into our major news.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
Asylum seekers and refugees can be deported from TNT despite this country being a signatory to the United Nations 1951 Refugee Convention. Responding to the judgment, refugee activist Isina Gonzalez promises to fight the decision all the way to the Privy Council. NTA defends its decision to work with the UNC for the August 14th poll. Details in a moment. This is news on Power 102 Digital. I'm Avril Sindelbab. Good morning. Asylum seekers and refugees can be deported from TNT despite this country being a signatory to the United Nations 1951 Refugee Convention. The ruling came from High Court Judge Frank C. Passad yesterday as he dismissed a constitutional motion lawsuit brought by a Venezuelan refugee who was ordered to be deported by National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines earlier this year. Justice C. Passad in his ruling noted that the convention was not binding as its terms were not incorporated into local immigration laws. As a result, all migrant, refugees, and asylum seekers can be deported even if they have registered with United Nations High Commission of Refugees. Responding to the judgment, refugee activist Isina Gonzalez promised to fight this decision all the way to the Privy Council. Gonzalez claimed that the judge's decision will not deter the immigrant population and activists like herself from attempting to ensure that asylum seekers and refugees are not deported from TNT. Denise Pitcher, the executive director of the Caribbean Center for Human Rights, meanwhile, said there's need to protect these people. She pointed out that deporting asylum seekers and refugees back to a situation from which they had fled in the first place risks leaving them in situations where their safety and security may be threatened. The National Alliance for Transformation is fielding 31 candidates for the local government elections on August 14th under a coalition arrangement with the opposition United National Congress. Among the candidates are a former Attorney General and Ambassador to the United Kingdom, Garvin Nicholas, former national senior footballers Karen Cummings, Kenwyn Jones, and Ross Russell, entertainers Terry Seals, and three-time national extempo champion Black Sage, and persons from various disciplines. NTA political leader Gary Griffith expressed confidence in a coalition system and regime and that it could work in Trinidad and Tobago. Speaking at the rollout of local government election candidates Tuesday, Mr. Griffith said the NTA is willing to work with any political party which is interested in the development of the nation. He said the platform will not be used to disgrace people and the character, but put forward individuals willing to serve the nation.
An individual who was the national goalkeeper for the Trinidad and Tobago national hockey team for over 2 decades, and he was a previous PNM councillor in Mr. Joey Lewis. We have a well-known musical artist in Mr. Terry Seals. We have a previous Soca Warriors goalkeeper, the #1 goalkeeper for Trinidad and Tobago for years in Ross Russell. We have a previous national under-17, under-20, under-23 footballer who was also a kidney donor in Mr. Kevin Dodds.
You are listening to news on Power 102 Digital to 7 o'clock. A 15-year-old boy who was dropped off at hospital with gunshot wounds has died. Jason McIntyre of Mount Hope Road, Mount Hope, was dropped off at the Accident and Emergency Department of the Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex around midnight with gunshot wounds to the back. Police responded to a call by the hospital staff regarding the victim, but were unable to interview him as he became unresponsive while awaiting treatment. McIntyre's family say they are unaware of when he was shot or who he was with at the time of the shooting and who had dropped him off. Finally, here's weather news for the period today till midnight. Trinidad and Tobago, dull, hazy, and breezy and windy conditions despite the odd brisk shower, hazy and warm night. Note there's a significant concentration of Saharan dust present in the atmosphere. Persons who are sensitive to these conditions are being advised to exercise caution. Look out for a forecast maximum temperature of 32 degrees Celsius, both at Piarco International Airport and Crown Point in Tobago. Currently, it is 26 degrees Celsius at both localities. Recapping your headlines at 6 o'clock, asylum seekers and refugees can be deported from TNT despite this country being a signatory to the United Nations 1951 Refugee Convention, according to a High Court judge. Responding to the judgment, refugee activist Isina Gonzalez promises to fight this decision all the way to the Privy Council, and the NTA defends its decision to work with the UNC for the August 14th poll. I'm Avril Sindelbab. That was news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. Look out for more news in detail coming up at 12 noon and another update at 8 o'clock this morning. For more details, log on to power102fm.com.
up to date, and credible. Power 102 Digital. Local government elections 2023 is on Monday, 14th August. What are the issues affecting you and your community? What level of representation are you demanding? What will determine who you vote for? Power 102 Digital presents the Local Government Digital Debate Series 2023. 3 debates covering the issues affecting you: crime and national security, finance and investment, human development, and local government reform. Power 102 Digital Local Government Digital Debates 2023. The first debate this Wednesday, 5th July, 7 to 9 a.m. with Guy Griffith of the National Transformation Alliance, David Abdullah of the Movement for Social Justice, Timothy Hammett-Smith of Hope, and Felicia Holder of the PP. Wednesday, 5th July, 7 to 9 a.m. only on www.power102fm.com and on the Power 102 Digital app. Download now and streaming on YouTube and Facebook channels live. Power 102 Local Government Election Digital Debate Series 2023 this Wednesday, 7 to 9 a.m. Power 102 Digital, empowering you.
So we say good morning and welcome back. Good morning.
Good morning, Senator Richards.
To Timothy Hammett-Smith. Good morning to Felicia Holder. Ms. Holder, are you hearing me? Good morning, Guy Griffith.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Ms. Holder. Are you hearing me? And we're waiting the logging on of David Abdullah. He says he's logged on, but I'm not seeing him in the system. Just sending her a message. All right, welcome. While we sort out that. And just to give you an overview of what we're trying to do here, we're trying to engage parties and independent candidates contesting the local government elections 2023 coming up on August 14th. Felicia may have to log out and log in, and so too David. We're trying to engage them in the issues. I know each of the parties and individuals contesting the elections will be having their own meetings. We know that their own meetings moving about. We wanted to do a different kind of engagement between the parties and individuals because there are independents contesting the elections. And we wanted to give them a chance to speak their mind. We hope to have 3 of these debates and engage all as many contestants as possible. If we need to have more, we will have more to accommodate as many candidates as possible, including the independents who are vying for districts in the local government election. Right? I'm trying to get Ms. Holder to relog in. And also David Abdullah. All right, let me just give you the format that this is going to take while she sorts it out. Let me just remove her. Hopefully she will be able to sort out that technical issue for the moment. And we can add Mr. Abdullah to the stream. And the format is going to be very simple. We've tried to take elements of North American and UK debates and incorporate them with some sort of what we've seen once or twice in the past with Trinidad and Tobago, where each of the persons representing the parties, we have 3 main segments. The first is going to be on crime and security, the second on finance and investment, and the third on local government specifically and the governance. And within those segments, the entities have the opportunity to switch out different people who may have expertise in those areas in their particular political entities or in their incarnation of those seeking representation spots. We will give each participant 2 minutes for an introduction, and then we start posing the questions in the round. One by one, we'll get a chance to answer the question. After that is finished, we will come back with another 90 seconds for the participants to rebut, challenge, or agree with their colleagues who are on the feed. And also, they may add new points that they may not have gotten through in the first round. And at the end of a couple of questions, we'll have, so that there's some level of organic interface between you all. We will have an open forum or an open floor kind of situation where you can interact with each other freely and challenge each other, agree with each other, raise points on the particular issue and question, so that we have a kind of organic mix inside of there. So with that said, and I hope Miss Holder gets to log back in pretty soon. Let me start with Timothy Hammersmith and ask him to introduce himself, and he's representing HOPE. Gary Griffith is representing the National Transformation Alliance. David Abdullah is representing the Movement for Social Justice, and Felicia Houle is representing the People's Empowerment Party, PP. So let me start with Timothy Hammersmith and ask you to introduce your party and yourself. You have 2 minutes starting now.
Good morning, Senator Richards, and good morning to all your viewers on Power 102. I am Timothy Hammersmith. I represent, as political leader of HOPE, the party HOPE. And one of the things that people tend to ask is, what does HOPE stand for? And we stand on 4 pillars that we feel are the foundation of what Trinidad and Tobago requires in order to transform the nation. And because we see that the nation, one of the problems with it is that we are riddled with corruption, and it is what has not permitted Trinidad and Tobago to achieve the kind of potential that it has, is due to this corruption. We start with honest government. We believe that honest government is pivotal to any change, to any transformation of Trinidad and Tobago. And within that, we also seek opportunity for all, as opposed to, you don't have to have a party card, you don't have to be, favored, you don't have to be a financier, but we believe that all people of Trinidad and Tobago should have that opportunity to attain their goals and to achieve their aspirations. We believe that the kind of leadership that we need to bring to Trinidad and Tobago is people-centered leadership. And in people-centered leadership, we look for the common good of all people so that we can sustain not just and remove inequality, which tends to drag down the country, so that everybody will be able to participate in the building up of Trinidad and Tobago from the ground up, and leaders may emerge at all levels of Trinidad and Tobago. And finally, we believe we need to have economic transformation. Trinidad has relied on simply having oil and gas for too long, and now we find ourselves in a quagmire. And it will take, and you will hear later on today, Professor Patrick Watson telling us what we need to do to achieve economic transformation.
Thank you. 2 minutes up.
Those are the 4 foundational pillars which we think distinguishes HOPE, and we think that brings to Trinidad and Tobago, to the governance of Trinidad and Tobago, what we believe it needs at this point.
Thank you. 2 minutes up, Mr. Hammersmith. Let me go to Felicia Holder and welcome her. Thank you, Mr. Hammersmith. Felicia, welcome. Could you unmute, please? I think you're still muted. And you have 2 minutes starting now to introduce yourself and your party's policies, etc. Go ahead, please. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Paul, and good morning to the other panelists. My name is Felicia Holder. I'm the chairman of the Progressive Empowerment Party. And in introducing the Progressive Empowerment Party, I have to say that we were founded 6.5 years ago in 2017 as a direct result of the failure of the two-party system that presently exists in Trinidad and Tobago, that has seen a revolving door of red and yellow, where the people have been left behind, they have been neglected. Trinidad and Tobago has been left behind and neglected, whereas the world is moving forward while we continue to play party politics and get nothing as a result out of it. Our policies, we have 21 policies that are focused on the redevelopment of Trinidad and Tobago, that focus on home ownership, that focus on uplifting communities, that focus on bringing people together. Because one of the reasons we have this race voting in Trinidad is because these two parties have used that to divide us along racial lines. And we say one people under one flag. We encourage everybody to join us under the umbrella. We say a rising tide lifts all boats. We look at the most underprivileged societies and seek to raise their circumstances to bring hope and opportunity for all. The Progressive Empowerment Party is focused on taking Trinidad and Tobago forward. We're focused on ending corruption, bringing about real change through meaningful programs like national development to ensure that we have a safer and happier Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you so much, Felicia. Let's go to David Abdullah of the Movement for Social Justice. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Paul. Good morning to all of your listeners and viewers, and good morning to colleagues who are on the panel this morning in this debate. I'm David Abdullah, political leader of the Movement for Social Justice. As our name states very clearly, we are and stand for social justice. And this is consistent with the preamble to the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, which states, and I'm paraphrasing, that we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, affirm our belief in the principles of social justice, that the material resources should serve the common good, not the good of the few, I've added that piece, but the common good, and that labor should not be forced to work, be exploited or forced to work in inhumane conditions, and that advancement should be on the basis of merit and integrity. So that is what the preamble, one of the clauses of the preamble to the Constitution, which speaks to social justice. But our society is not one where social justice prevails. We have a system, an economic system, which benefits the few, benefits the wealthy few, while the majority of the people in this country, workers, the unemployed, small business people, fisher folk, farmers, and so on, are struggling to survive day to day. Many of them can't last from payday to payday, can't put food on the table. And that is absolutely wrong in a country that still has huge natural and human resources and other assets. So we are about the fundamental transformation, not just diversification, but the fundamental transformation of the relations of economic power so that we advocate the social solidarity economy where wealth and income can be in the hands of everyone and not just in the hands of a few. Secondly, we have offered a vision for changing Trinidad and Tobago. We say that we have to evolve. We were an independent country in August of 1962. We became a Republican state in August, September of 1976. And that is the first republic of 1976, the first Republican Constitution. But the institutions of state, the parliament, the cabinet, judiciary, all of these institutions really were the old colonial institutions. And so we are saying that we need to evolve to the second republic, where power can be placed in people's hands, where people can be empowered in their communities and in their workplaces. And those are just some of the things that we say need to be done.
Gary Griffith, good morning. Go ahead, please. 2 minutes starting now.
Good morning, Gary Griffith, political leader of the National Transformation Alliance. Good morning to your many listeners, viewers, and also to my colleagues. And the reason I say colleagues is because we do not see persons who have different political views as the enemy. And that has been the problem in this country. Whether it is your PNM or UNC, that is your right. And these parties have done a lot towards the development of Trinidad and Tobago. The National Transformation Alliance, we may be perceived as the new kids on the block, but the fact of the matter is that we have now become the catalyst and the eye opener that everyone is watching to see what it is we are doing, what it is we are saying. That is the word. When we have that word in the NTA, transformation, this is to transform the country, to turn around the situation of the politics of old, where most political parties and even leaders will spend most of their time attacking, destroying, ridiculing, undermining. We've seen certain political leaders do that even in this campaign. We intend to do different. We intend to unite, to build, to be productive. And that is where the word alliance comes in, where we are bringing an alliance of minds. It doesn't mean that you have to be an NTA till you die. And you would have seen it that the batting lineup we have in our slate of candidates and aldermen and possible mayors is second to none, because we just want the best persons available. And you will hear it later on, Paul, and to the rest of my colleagues. We are not here to try to discredit anyone or to try to come up with empty promises, which is known in politics as a manifesto. What we have is something called a roadmap, where it is we will be getting the best minds available to come up with something and not just give you, though we have 20 policies, 30 policies. Anyone can do that. Until you are there and you can actually ascertain what is the problem, only then can you come up with the proper solutions. So the NTA, again, it is based on transformation, and it is based on forming a proper alliance of getting the best persons available to unite and develop Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you, Gary. And thank everyone for being here. Just so you know, the general format we'll be taking is that I will be posing the initial questions to you and rotating you in terms of starting your access to the questions to try and have some kind of fairness, so that with different questions, I'll start with different persons in terms of posing the questions. So let me pose the first question, starting with Felicia holding this round. This is a local government election, but it has national implications for many different reasons. How important, because this first segment is crime and security, how important are crime and citizen security as a local government issue? Felicia.
Well, I'm happy you asked that question, Paul, because this actually sparked a debate before the debate, and I was wondering why was national security being included in a local election debate. I understand that it's important to the national issues, but if we had to focus on local government, it's not really part of that discussion. However, I understand that around an election time, people are focused on listening to the policies of different parties. This local election, we consider it a referendum for the Progressive Empowerment Party, for the nation on a whole, where people are looking to see real alternatives to what we have experienced in the past. One of my colleagues said earlier that he's not going to diss any of the other political parties. I'm not here to do that either. But I have to point out that those two political parties have taken advantage of the citizens by using race to divide us. And now in this election that's coming up, we're looking for alternatives that can give ideas and solutions of how we take Trinidad and Tobago forward. Yes, national security is important, but also so is social development, also so is national development. All of those things go hand in hand. And if that's the discussion that we're going to go down, I think that is the road I would want to take, versus discussing what should be a national topic on a local government platform.
Thank you. Let's go with David Abdullah next. How important is crime and security as a local government election issue, if at all?
Well, yeah, one would expect that a local government election is focused on local issues and who is going to best represent the interests of the burgesses in their respective municipal corporations. But given where the country is at, where the society is at, quite obviously, national issues are going to impact, because when we open the newspapers, when we listen to the news, crime and violence is center stage. And therefore, you know, it begins with the safety and security of every citizen. And in that regard, of course, municipal corporations increasingly are going to have some responsibility for safety and security of citizens. And therefore, one can't separate, if you wish, one issue from another, because the policies that are implemented at central government level or that are not implemented at central government level will impact on what happens in the communities, which then impact on municipal corporations. So you can't separate them fundamentally, and therefore it is an important issue. And we have to address crime and violence, so perhaps I'll get a chance to come back to that later on. We have to address crime and violence at the root cause of what is taking place. Why does this happen? Why do we have a violent society? Because we have always had a violent society. We came out of violence. Slavery and indenture were violent systems, and we have not been able to escape a culture of violence. And until we address the issue of a culture of violence and work towards a culture of peace, we are really going to continue to have the problems of crime. And that has to deal with our education system, our economic system to provide opportunities and decent jobs and incomes for everybody, and the possibility of everybody developing to their full human potential. But we'll come back to that, I hope. Yeah.
All right. Gary Griffith, how important are crime and security as local government issues, if at all?
Yeah, sure. I think it's very unfortunate that some will think that it is not important. In fact, it is the most important, even in local government. The most fundamental rights of any citizen in any country is that of your right to be safe, your right to live. And even in local government, let us not believe that local government is just about box drains and roads and drainage. It has to do with making sure that you are secure. Without safety and security, prosperity can come in. Without safety and security, people will be caged. Without safety and security, you're going to be concerned about investment and about doing anything that can be productive because you're concerned. It will affect foreign investment. So even when it comes to local government, when persons decide to vote, they're not going to vote to see which political party is going to just fix my box drains and build roads. It has to do with the whole concept of providing me with my basic needs. The most basic need is that of safety and security, because if that is the case, and national security was not a fundamental part of local government, the municipal police will not be part of the whole debate. And that is where municipal policing comes in. The same way I was able to transform the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we intend to do the same by getting the best team available to ensure that even with municipal police officers, whether it is in your boroughs or your corporations, we can have them perform at optimum level to get the country to feel safe, to feel secure, to feel comfortable, to invest, to be able to come out onto the streets, to be able to go to restaurants. And with that, it helps develop the country, it develops your community, it develops your corporation, it develops your borough. So we are going to provide that same template that transformed the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to provide the period where the country felt safer more than any time before, where crime went down to number 4 behind health, safety, and the economy, to do the same in your local communities through local government transformation as it pertains to national security.
Thank you. Timothy Hammersmith?
We would say that crime and corruption is the fundamental underlying cause why Trinidad and Tobago cannot develop. And therefore, nothing can happen unless we attack crime and corruption and eliminate it from Trinidad and Tobago. And that, if therefore that is correct, then it must be, it takes precedence, if you like, in all matters relating to local government, because local government will never perform as it ought to if crime and corruption continue to pervade Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, it is a root cause why Trinidad and Tobago has failed to develop, achieve its potentials. And therefore, it is vital that we have on the agenda, even in local government, even as we approach local government, that we have on the agenda, how shall we attack crime and corruption so that, in fact, we could best achieve all that is possible within the local government, where leaders can grow up from the ground up and take their place in making Trinidad and Tobago a better nation. But primarily, we must end crime and corruption and attack it so that the roots of it cannot continue to create negative vibes throughout Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you. Rebuttal round. Felicia Holder, you said you didn't, but correct me if I'm wrong, you said you didn't think crime and that's what I got. Crime and security, citizen security should have been one of the forefront topics in this discussion. Am I incorrect?
I'm saying that crime and national security is not focused on local government. But if we want to talk about national security, I don't mind diving deep into that. Further than the plans to reduce crime, let's talk about national development, which Timothy Hammersmith, he said it. He said that we as a country, crime and corruption are the main issues plaguing us. I I want to disagree. I believe that poverty is the reason that crime and corruption exist. And if we want to talk and discuss that issue, I can speak at length about it, because nobody goes and robs and kills somebody because they're bored or they have nothing to do. The underpinning of crime in this country is because people are simply poor. I'm living in a Black community. I'm living in a community where people are conversations I'm hearing as I'm getting ready in the morning. You're hearing children crying because they're hungry. And that's the reality of Trinidad and Tobago. It's not enough to say that we're going to police them. It's not enough to say that we're going to lock them up and throw them in these cells. Where is the hope and opportunity for these neglected communities? If you want to talk local government election, let's talk about these communities that have been left behind year after year, decade after decade, political party, government after government. And what do we have to show for it? Crime it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists because of need. And if we're going to have that discussion on the needs of these communities, let's take it there.
David?
Yeah, well, let me put a slightly different shade on it. I don't necessarily disagree with what Felicia said, but let me put a different shade on it. I think the problem is that we have an economic system and a social structure that have not changed from colonial plantation days, in essence. So our education system is essentially an elitist education system. We just had SEA results coming out yesterday, or day before yesterday, and the ministry said 58%, I think, of the students got more than 50% in the exam. That means that 42% got less than 50%. I think some 13% or 14% got less than 30% in that exam. Now, this is not a new development. This has been going on for years. If you go back to the issue of CSEC, what we used to call O-levels long time, you get a very high percentage, more than 50% of the students who should be passing our CSEC exams don't get 5 subjects or more. We have failed systems. Or rather, we have systems that fail the majority of the people, and those systems benefit the few. And it is those structural problems in our society that causes a problem. So that years ago, there were poor people, but there was a sense of social mobility. One generation worked hard, and their children went to secondary school. The first generation didn't. The third generation went to university. So there was a sense of social mobility. Now that has been broken. And so young people don't have that hope in many of our communities to progress. And the only jobs that are available for them are security officers or workers in fast food and so on. And they don't see that as being able to give themselves a secure future, to buy a home, and so on. And the labor market, which I come back to. Yeah, okay, I'll come back to the issue of the labor market and why that frustrates
Gary Griffith and
young people.
Hamlet Smith, Felicia Holder, and both David spoke and in the context of crime and citizen security. There are 2 ways to tackle crime that can work side by side. As Felicia raised it, the highest correlated most studies, 90% of studies, in terms of high correlation with crime in a particular jurisdiction is social inequity, which Felicia spoke to and David spoke to. This is an incontrovertible fact. There's the other side of it where you can police a state and pass laws and put people in jail, but that's not sustainable in many people's estimation. Gary, what's your party's perspective on those 2 issues sometimes clashing in our jurisdiction, where we don't seem to be dealing with the inequity issues as fervently as we pour money into national security, and that in many people's estimations is unsustainable?
No, they're both correct. It goes hand in hand. So let me clarify. On most occasions, politicians, when they do not have any knowledge as it pertains to criminology or national security or law enforcement, they turn to the social concerns, which is the basic thing, because that's they go in their comfort zone. It's not to take away the importance of it. When you deal with law enforcement, national security, there are 3 aspects: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary is the main aspect that will reduce crime anywhere in the world. Policing, hard targeting, law enforcement, high visibility, deterrence, investigations. That is primary. You do that, you will reduce crime. You would have seen it with me as Commissioner of Police. It was the highest reduction in crime, in violent crime in 17 years. As the Minister of National Security, it was the highest reduction in serious crime. However, I agree with David and Felicia. There's also something known as secondary crime prevention, finding avenues to take persons away from a life of crime, the development of the economy, education, health, social services, even sport. If these things are not provided, it may cause persons to go in the wrong direction. But again, going hand in hand, that aspect of primary crime prevention, it is the fundamental part that will reduce crime. There's also something called tertiary, which is the justice system. If the justice system is flawed, you will get that revolving door in crime, such as a high recidivism because of poor rehabilitation.
And Timothy Hammersmith.
Yeah, so I think Felicia makes the point that it is poverty which brings about crime. And one of the things that Hope says is that corruption prevents us from getting all peoples to benefit and become achievers, promote their own well-being in order to get better jobs. So in fact, corruption, therefore, is a segment of crime that we have to get under control. Unless we do that, we will never prosper. And therefore, you will get inequality between the rich and the poor. And corruption, we believe, is at the very heart, the essence of what prevents our government from being able to grow the country in a way that all people can have a good, prosperous life and succeed. And I think David makes a point that the education system is not supportive of that. But it is corruption that overwhelms the country and prevents us from tackling the problems that we have in order to achieve a better country, sustainability, and transformation, so that those from the bottom can go up. Trinidad we always had poverty, where we didn't always have this level of crime and corruption. And I don't think, to say poverty comes first and then crime after, I think negates the fact that it is a corrupt society engendered by corrupt politics that has not allowed Trinidad, the wealth of Trinidad, to flow right through from top to bottom and allow people to grow and get opportunities to achieve their objectives, their aspirations, and their goals.
Thank you. I'm going to ask David and Gary, can you leave your cameras on, please? Because let's presume that we're on CNN and we need the cameras on all the time, right?
Yeah, sure.
So this is the interaction round now, and there are two schools of thought that we
I was just trying to save some bandwidth there. Yeah, but
talking about here, and this is a round where you can interact freely, given what you've stated before. What do you think in terms of your parties and those you represent, and you're aspiring to win districts in this local government election? How can local government bodies be a better tool to achieve both ideas you're talking about, whether it be the social inequity intervention and closing the economic gap in the country, or municipal police aiding in law enforcement? Let's start with Felicia. You can interact freely.
Well, as it pertains to local government, as it is right now in its present form, I do not believe that it's set up to do any of what you just outlined. And this is where I would have to introduce the Progressive Empowerment Party's proposal on local government. And I want to say that this is not us saying that local government is an absolute failure. It isn't. But the way it's set up right now, it obviously does not work.
What has to change?
Pardon?
What has to change?
Well, what we propose is having seamless communication and overlap. The way we're set up right now, we have 41 constituencies, 14 regional corporations, 9 police divisions, 5 RHAs, 1 Tobago House of Assembly, and nothing overlaps. You have an issue right now. Me as a citizen, I have an issue in my community with mosquitoes. I have no idea who I have to go to. I have a big pothole in the middle of my road on Car Street. I have no idea who to turn to. You go to a counselor, they say, go to that person there. There's no proper channels. There's nothing set up to actually function and work within the community. So what we propose is to make all of the constituencies autonomous, merge a little of what local government does with central government in terms of giving each of the constituencies the autonomy to manage public works, public utilities, education, security, and health within their constituencies. This idea, this plan, this master plan that we have is supposed to make accessing these services easier. You in Port of Spain should not be waiting for a valve to turn on in a reamer for you to get water. You shouldn't have to wait.
Do you agree with that approach? Do you think that can work?
Sorry, Paul. Did you ask me to
Do you
respond to
think
that?
party's proposition can work? Blurring the lines between central government responsibilities and local government bodies. Is that what you think, Felicia?
I'm not saying blur the lines. I'm saying remove the red tape and the bureaucracy that inhibits the constituencies, inhibits the corporations from actually doing their job. One of the main issues that councillors have is they say we don't have access to resources. Central government is stifling those resources. So why not make it easily accessible? Why not give them the autonomy to manage supervisors of public works, public utilities within the constituencies? Why not make it easier so that when residents have a complaint, they know exactly who to go to? Why not make it easier for education and us to monitor education within the constituencies?
David, your thoughts? Tim, your thoughts?
Oh, yes. But
Okay,
certainly, local government needs to be able to have influence on what transpires within their local area. And therefore, we do need to grow up leaders who are capable of looking after the needs and interests of the people within their community. It does mean that in order to have the kind of influence you want, money, it becomes important. And therefore, having local government have their own and sufficient resources in order to carry out what is needed for their community, it becomes vital.
But is that going to empower people in the burgesses in the 14 corporations in a way that reduces the economic gap? Because that's Felicia's initial proposition and David's initial proposition. The inequity in it's just showed up in many studies. The inequity is driving crime, is the theory here. Is that going to close the economic gap, David and Gary?
Okay, so let me say that in terms of local government, we are very strong for local government in terms of empowering people where they live. But we want to also see that in the context of constitutional reform. Local government should be embedded in the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. That's the first point I want to make. And therefore, you wouldn't have had a situation of whether the postponement of an election violates somebody's constitutional rights. If it's embedded in Constitution, it would have violated someone's constitutional rights. Secondly, we want to see the village and community councils being far more involved in the process of delivery of resources in terms of what communities need. Decisions about what is required in a corporation or in a community should not be made centrally by any ministry. That should be made by the communities themselves. And our proposal is that resources get allocated according to needs. So if, for example, every 20,000 community of 20,000 people requires 1 secondary school, 3 ECE schools, health centers, and so on, certain number of recreation grounds, those things are a must and must be delivered, and resources must be allocated to them for that. So you get away from partisan budgeting, and you therefore get budgeting according to needs, and those needs determined by the communities themselves. We actually would like to move to a situation where local government elections are not contested by political parties at all, but by people from the communities in the electoral districts who people know would represent them, because local government is supposed to be about representation, not supposed to be about the party and using it to leverage the party to get into government. It's supposed to be about representation of the needs of the people. That is what we are.
Okay, I just want to go quickly to what Felicia spoke about is something that the Congress of the People had since 2007 or 2008. That was decentralization of government, the devolution of power. But let me clarify again. by us speaking about what should be done and what can be done, it is not going to happen. We have to accept the facts. We have to accept what is now. The things that they spoke about make sense, but it cannot happen unless you have some constitutional majority. What we need now is to know how can we find solutions and not to find excuses for the present problem. For example, I heard something that I would like to get back to, because I think it is rather dangerous to try to link poverty, to say that poverty can be the catalyst to crime. And that is a very dangerous statement, because a lot of persons are poor and they do not turn to crime, the vast majority. So let us not get this perception that because poverty
but isn't that a false, you're making a false equivalency. People are not saying that every poor person engages in crime. The theory or the proposition is that crime and social inequity is a driver of criminal activity. They're two different things.
Okay, so let me give you the criminological theory. Crime is a product of opportunity. The greater the deterrent, the less likelihood persons would commit crime because of the greater possibility of them being apprehended. So, for example, criminologists did interviews with persons who committed crime in the United Kingdom. 95% of them who committed robbery says because of the need for money. So you understand there is that degree of imbalance that requires persons to have opportunities. It is not an excuse. But then there's the white-collar crime, the rich gangs, the persons who have. And that has played the biggest part towards the destruction of Trinidad and Tobago because of the cartels, because of governments giving state contracts to gangs. We're giving them $50,000 box train and they bill them $5 billion for it. That becomes the problem, and it filters down to affect the small man. So let us be very careful about trying to automatically link poverty to being the catalyst to crime. And that's what I want to clarify. And again, going back to the point of local government, with national security, which is what this topic is about, national security plays a part by looking at the same things that David and Felicia spoke about, where it is you have all of the different needs that the community requires. This can go hand in hand with national security. For example, when we build the AstroTurf in St. James Barracks, that's to ensure young persons could play sport, the Commissioner's Cup. So you can interlock policing with the development of a community. When we had Street Road, crosstalk, certain things to get policing to be able to help in developing the community and to assist in the development of young persons to turn away from a life of crime.
Thank you. Final question in this national security round, and I will start with David Abdullah on this. The issue of law enforcement and the support of municipal police. How do you see that? How does your party see that working moving forward with this new proposed incarnation of local government with the Local Government Reform Act? Do you think it can work? What is your party's perspective on that, given the fact that so many of these 14 municipalities have coastline areas? We have a porous border issue in Trinidad and Tobago, which leads to the illegal gun issue, the migrant issue, all making the crime situation more complicated. What is your party's perspective on municipal police working with, if at all, law enforcement, TTPS, TT Defense Force, etc., in alleviating crime through local government collaboration?
Well, obviously, the municipal police have to work hand in hand with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. That goes without saying. You can't have silos, and one of the problems that we have in this country is silo governance, and where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. So quite clear, and that goes within law enforcement, customs, and the police or the defense force, and so on. So yes, the municipal police need to be better resourced and would support the work of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service in terms of the policing in the municipalities for which they have responsibility. But you cannot get away from addressing crime and corruption from a national level. And the MSJ, contrary to what Gary may think, we have, from many, many years now, we have very many detailed policies to deal with that, including things like lie detector tests for everyone in customs, BIR, licensing, police, defense force, and so on. All those areas where there's corruption. Strengthening, removing the financial intelligence unit from being a department of the Ministry of Finance to a standalone unit with investigative powers, so they don't just get reports, but they investigate and move the thing towards prosecution. Strengthening the police complaints authority, a whole range of things that we have proposed to deal with. We need to deal with campaign finance reform. Unless political parties are regulated with respect to where they get money from, corruption is not going to be dealt with, because corruption starts at the head. The fish rots from the head. And so we need to deal with party finance legislation. We have put in very detailed memoranda to the Joint Select Committee of Parliament that is examining a piece of legislation to introduce party finance regulations. So there are many positions that the MSJ has adopted with respect to dealing with crime and violence, quite apart from the social aspect, which Gary calls tier 2. We also have addressed tier 1 issues as well. The issue of guns coming into the country, the gangs and why tying that back to those who have money that are engaged in the trade of drugs and guns. All of that we have dealt with.
Felicia.
I want to start by saying a police state is not the answer. That is not the answer to crime. Yes, on a local government level, municipal police has to work with national police. And Gary would have pointed out the primary, secondary, and tertiary reasons behind crime. But I have to ask, right now we're focused on the primary, where the secondary and the tertiary, where are those working in tandem with ensuring that crime is eradicated in Trinidad and Tobago? No, you can't say that every poor person commits crime, but you can't deny that it's a driving factor behind why many crimes are committed. You can't deny that you throw somebody in a prison cell, you lock them up for 10 years and they come out, they haven't been rehabilitated. What are they going to do? Not go back on the streets and do the same thing? We have always been focused on the heavy-handed approach. Operation, in my early years, I remember Operation Anaconda, one shot, one kill. All of these very heavy-handed approaches, yet crime, the only time we have really seen a dip in crime was during the lockdown in COVID. And why? Because people were literally locked up in their homes. They couldn't commit crime. I can tell you in the ghetto, people are not afraid of the police. They're not afraid of the police when food and feeding your children becomes a necessity. And if we're not addressing those things holistically, then we are literally just militarizing the country and making us into a police state. And as it pertains to working in the communities, municipal police, the porous borders, like you mentioned, of course, securing the borders, that is part of national security. But I have to underscore and insist that the plans for the country as it pertains to national security, even on a local level, have to be focused on looking at all the reasons why Trinidad and Tobago has such a high crime problem. It has to be focused on addressing the issue. No, I do not think that it's a basic approach by pointing out the social issues and the concerns that drive crime, because in countries where the crime is lowest, prisons are literally closing down. That is not the reality of Trinidad and Tobago.
Black Timothy Hammersmith.
So you have two levels of crime. Certainly there are national issues that cannot be dealt with at the local government level. You pointed to guns coming into the country, and that can only, and porous borders, that can only be handled at a national level. But there is real room for municipal police having a role within their communities. The truth is that one of the things that the police need to do is establish relationships with their community. Trust has to develop, because where we've fallen short very often is in the detection rate. And the reason why the detection rate is so low, or partly why, is because people are not willing to come forward because they don't trust the police. And it is through the municipal police that you can establish bonds, because policing should not only be a matter relating to crime, but serving the people. And hence, a good reason why police now have police clubs, in order to develop a certain type of culture within communities. And there needs to be that interaction between police and the community, which reinforces trust and therefore develops a new type of equity within those local governments. So both are important. We cannot tackle the national problems at a local level. We have to have, whether it is, we have scanning, there's scanning nowadays that can you can carry through 150 containers in 1 hour. And yet we cannot. Why can we not bring it into the system? I think that corruption is at the heart of why we cannot introduce those elements that are required in order to get security and crime and corruption under control. But local government is certainly very important in the police sector.
Go ahead.
Yep,
Go ahead.
please.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just clarify quickly some very inaccurate comments. Okay. So the first thing is, as we pertain to the porous borders, it's very difficult for the municipal police to be involved in that. Their role and function, it is very difficult, if not impossible, because 95% of the illegal drugs and weapons that enter our country come through the legitimate ports of entry. So that will be based on the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, secondary, but more so the customs and other elements. So that's not, as it pertains to local government, the porous borders will have very little impact in dealing with reducing that. As it pertains to the comment of the police state, where did that come in? How could putting good policing be conceived as a police state? I mean, it's very unfortunate to use those words. A police state is when it is, it seems that the individual shouldn't know. A police state is when it is you have one leader making full direction and virtual dictatorship to run law enforcement and even the judiciary. That is a police state. It has nothing to do with good policing. The other comment about crime being reduced because the borders were locked down because of COVID, totally inaccurate, because if that was the case, how come in October, November, after I left, and there was still a state of emergency, COVID and the pandemic and the public health regulations, we had the highest number of murders in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, sorry, the second and third. That was October, November. Also in Jamaica, Guyana, and almost every state in the United States, crime actually went down drastically after COVID. So I guess the criminals in those countries missed Felicia's memo. Having said that, again, we go back to local government. I can give the assurance that local government, if you have the right persons in place, similar to what we did when I was Minister of National Security and we formed the Rapid Response Unit, the Community Comfort Patrol, the National Security Special Operation Group, the National Operations Center, and then as the Commissioner of Police, when I introduced the Rapid Response Unit, the Gender-Based Violence Unit, the Social Media Monitoring Unit, the Operational Command Center, SORT, pepper spray, tasers, dashboard cameras, making sure you have a 5-minute response. We can do the same thing for municipal police. So the same template I use, using the principles of leadership, accountability, management, and measurement of performance, we can transform the municipal police to make the place just as safe as the citizens felt under my watch as Commissioner of Police. We'll also involve the business sector through the I Support Our Services. We'll incorporate the private security industry. We'll also incorporate the business sector to have their cameras fed into an operational command center, similar to what we did. We can implement drones through the private sector. So there's a lot you can do in local government to transform the whole security apparatus in the corporations or the boroughs, and that is what we intend to do. And again, finally, what Timothy spoke about, you saw the transformation in the police service. The public trust and confidence in the police service was 14% when I arrived. When I left, was 55%. We can transform every arm of the public service in the same manner and get the public to believe and be confident if you have that type of proper leadership.
Thank you very much. That's the end of our first segment on crime and national security. We're going to take a short break. This is the Power 102 digital debate series focusing on local government election 2023. When we come back, we will focus on more specifically on finance and investment in the local government bodies. We'll be joined by Mr. Dindial and also representing the NTA, also Patrick Watson, Professor Patrick Watson, representing Hope. All that and more coming up right here on Power 102 Digital. And welcome back. Of course, this is the series called Power Digital, looking at local government election. Felicia stays with us in this segment representing the PEP, and we would like to welcome, I hope they can put their cameras on, Lieutenant Commander Norman Dindial and Professor Patrick Watson, who will be focused on Finance and Economy, Lieutenant Commander Dindial for the NTA, Patrick Watson for Hope, Felicia Holder will stay with us for PP, and we're supposed to be joined by Gregory Finance, representing the MSJ. Gregory is now with us. Good morning, Gregory. Good morning, Professor Watson.
Good morning, everybody.
And good morning, Lieutenant Commander Norman Dildia. Thank you all for joining us this morning.
Morning.
Trying to get a different kind of discussion going in the local government scenario in Trinidad and Tobago. And let's start with the first question. And I'll pose that question first to Gregory Finance of the MSJ. Let's focus on investment and finance in the local government sector. And if you think the law as proposed and when it's fully proclaimed will make a difference in the financing of local government bodies to the benefit of the burgesses. Gregory, you're first.
Well, a key element of that is what are the economic policies being deployed at the local government level. So, whether there's a mechanism for developing sound policies at that level and ensuring that the money goes to that is going to be key. I'm not aware that within those local communities that there, as David had indicated, there is a bit of organizational structure that allows the burgesses to participate at the level of proposing what are the areas of the economy that money could be invested to, that they would see direct benefits from it. So that is one of the challenges, right? And that is key to how the money is being used. Because if the money is just being used for addressing roadworks and other things like that, there would be some element of economy where persons are going to benefit. But if we are looking at sustainable development within those communities, then the economic approach has to be much broader.
Right, Professor Watson?
Yes, I hope I'm being seen. And
yes, you are. Loud and clear.
Good. Yes, let me just say some examples of what I lived in two big countries, the UK and France, and how they did the financing of local government was almost automatic. And in the case of both countries, it was based largely on what I think the British call a council tax. And the money went straight into the coffers of the local government. You know very well that in the case of things like the road tax, our equivalent of the council tax, which would be eventually the property tax once again, it goes into the central fund, the consolidated fund, and may be distributed by the Minister of Finance accordingly. That is not the best way to develop a local economy. Remember, within certain communities, there are economic issues. Some communities, like the one I live in, is semi-rural. There's a large agricultural sector here, and there's money required dealing with things like flooding and so on. And remember that the agricultural sector, in my view, is to play a great role in economic diversification. To the extent, and that's a national issue, and it's for the earning of foreign exchange. So it's at the very local level. You could begin encouraging these kinds of activities, including, and I would want to suggest, some separate funding within the local communities for supporting innovation and entrepreneurship, which is absent even really at the national level. Technically fully absent, notwithstanding the existence of one or two windows of opportunity, but it's clearly not working. And in fact,
time, Professor, we got to go to the next speaker.
Sure.
Hold this one, please. Lieutenant Dindial, go ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much, Paul. And I'm very glad to be here with this esteemed group. Now, Paul, you won't find much debate from us and the NTA in some of these issues that you're discussing, especially when it comes to investment and opportunity. You would find that all the political parties here, we have the same ideas. What you find not happening is that leadership and that management of the principles. Now, you see, in local government, when you're dealing with investment, you have to recognize that you can't get anything done if the people don't feel safe and secure. So we come back to our first session. The businesses in the environment, the businesses and the communities, even the agricultural people in the urban and rural sectors, you must feel safe first. That's in the economy. In that, you will find people coming out more. So if you have things like restaurants, manufacturing sector, there is where you're going to have the investment. You have to have that sort of security. People will come out more. They will spend. You will see the restaurants being open. You will see the manufacturing sector also getting things done. In the agricultural sector, people, there's a lot of perennial larceny going on. So it comes back to that confidence that the people have in the country. And we see that even if we go into the macro aspect of things, because you will not have foreign investors coming into your country and invest if you have no security and stability within your economy, within your structures. So foreign investors are not going to come into Trinidad and Tobago and invest because they are thinking themselves they will be attacked. So you have that translating into the banking industry. So when you have insurance, you have all these people not feeling secure to invest in Trinidad and Tobago. And it comes all the way back down to our first segment that you were saying, Mr. Paul. We have to feel safe and secure in everything. And then that translates back into proper management of an accountability of holding the thing across the board. Financial investment.
Thanks. Good morning, Philip Alexander. Investment and finance in the local government regional bodies.
Yes, good morning. Good morning to everyone. Thanks for having me. I want to say in response to the last person speaking, we fundamentally disagree. So him saying that everybody agrees is not correct. I want to use as an example that America spends $32 billion a year on roads, and that $32 billion is paid for by local gas tax. The Progressive Empowerment Party believes that all funding, all taxes collected locally should be spent locally. What central government is doing now is taxing people at the local level and then using it nationally for agenda items that do not affect people locally. We've heard the term restaurants 3 times in this debate, I believe. That is how we measure in how well the economy doing. Let's talk about jobs in the community. Let's talk easy access to credit for small business development. Let's talk access to sporting and cultural facilities, not just carnival time and World Cup time. Let's talk more green space for community development. How we leave all the national crime fight. How about we leave all the national crime fight in the central government and debate at national elections and focus on issues that affect us at the local level. The Progressive Empowerment Party proposes that local government be empowered. In fact, we have a proposal that changes the Municipal Corporation Act to a constituency board of supervisors that more approximates and mirrors the way the constituency is set up. And it should be financed at budget time, so that everyone knows in your constituency for the next fiscal year, you have $800 million to spend on roads, on bridges, on drains, on parks, on schools, on flooding, on water, on lights, and on crime and municipal police. But if we continue to make policing the people the most important issue, that will not make a difference in the country. And I remember Keith Rowley, who one of the leaders on this thread used to work for, saying that you can't put a police officer in everybody's bedroom. Or was it Patrick Manning that said that? I can't remember, but I want to say that that is correct. People need to police themselves, and they are not going to be able to police themselves as long as social inequity, inequality, and poverty abounds. Crime is a function of poverty in Trinidad and Tobago. The drug trade running unchecked. You, Paul, just bring that up in the Senate.
Philip, for the pause, thank you. We'll come back to you in a while. Starting with Professor Watson on this one. Do you think the proposal, which is now based in law, that property taxes collected by the regional corporations and used for the services and infrastructure at some level in the corporations, supporting corporations, will actually redound to the benefit of the Burgesses as proposed in the law.
Yeah, if the law is implemented as it says, I cannot see how it cannot happen. My fear is that I think there is a loophole inside of that some of this still ends up going into the consolidated fund before being redistributed. I can't swear to that, but it's a very unfortunate circumstance that we have here. I think that most of us, including the people present here, are not opposed to a property tax, are not opposed to a local government tax. But that's exactly what they want to see happen. The speaker, Philip, who just spoke, mentioned that if you collect these monies, I forgot that, in fact, that there's this road tax that is supposed to be for property, for development within the communities. And it's not only the property tax is going to be the biggest one if and when it is implemented. And if it is used in that, it will go a long way to assist, but it may not be enough because there are many other concerns about that the community has that may require greater financing than they are now willing to give. The central government is going to remain in charge of the main purse strings, and it's not going to do much to assist the wider community. There are always loopholes in these laws, as there is, for instance, in the recent procurement legislation. I think you yourself may have pointed that out in one of your contributions in the Senate. I'm not sure. I don't want to give you credit if it's not due. But the point is that we have to be mindful that local government needs to be empowered. It needs to be legitimized in the strictest sense, including, as the recent speaker just mentioned, at the level of crime fighting. We do not want to have to depend always on handouts from the central government, and then the bigotry, the favors begin where if I am not within your party, that it doesn't
15 seconds.
That's fine. I'm finished. Thank you.
All right, Gregory, finance, do you think the laws proposed and when fully proclaimed will actually mean that the monies collected by regional bodies will actually mean that services improved because now you're paying taxes and there's an expectation where that is concerned. You're expecting services to improve. You're expecting some level of infrastructural upgrades to be consistent. You're still muted, Gregory.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that I want to agree with a lot of what Dr. Watson said, that, there will be some benefit, definitely, because once the money is coming directly to the councils, they will be able to undertake spend in the communities to address infrastructure and other issues. But again, what is prioritized, how the whole thing is looked at in the context of the full community. What is, those things, whether there are mechanisms for prioritizing what really should be priority and so on, will impact on the quality of what is given, right? I think we need more democratization generally in the country, and the ability for the persons and the burgesses to have a say in how those whatever resources are available are spent is key to really ensuring that what really needs to be addressed are addressed.
Philip, do you think it will actually work as envisioned?
I think Gregory is correct. And I want to say that the MSJ have been consistent in focusing on social inequality, which translates to the failure of local government to properly treat with its burgesses. I think Professor Patrick Watson hit the nail on the head. And I think that is where we need to be. We need to be thinking national and acting local when we're talking local government reform.
What do you mean by that? Give us some details on that. What do you mean by that?
We need to make sure that all the resources that are collected on a national level could be pooled and distributed equally. You cannot say that the money you collect in Goodwood Park will be spent in Goodwood Park and the money that you collect in Beetham will be spent in Beetham, because that will be a difference in amounts and volumes there. What we want is to get the country to a national level, and as a nation is a collection of communities. Once we focus on the development of all of the communities, the nation will take care of itself. We want to make sure that the quality of the roads and the drains and the amount of green spaces per capita, etc., in all communities are the same, so that all of the people, regardless of their financial position, would have the same hope and opportunity to develop themselves and their families. That goes to the first issue, will undo much of the crime that we have in Trinidad and Tobago as we give our young people especially hope and opportunity. We also have the issues of our schools that close every day at 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock. We have so many of our elders and retirees that have so much to give back and no opportunity to do so. Why we don't open those schools? We already paid for them. Why we don't open them and give it to people who have years of experience that they could teach the young ones coming up? You could create more hope and opportunity just by doing that today. It don't cost us $1. If we wanted to, Trinidad and Tobago could be one of the best places in the world to live. All of our parks, our green spaces should be well taken care of, and the responsibility should be put on local government to develop school grounds and school facilities, basketball, tennis, all of the sports you could think of culturally. We should be looking at improving the access to children to music lessons. Peter Minchell said once, our people have a burn inside them to be rhythmic, and we don't give them the opportunity to express it. Only a set of panyard. What happened to piano? What happened to guitar? What happened to flute and saxophone and trumpet? We were also brass people too. Let's go back to that. Let's use all of the access to funding generated locally to develop our communities locally, so our people could have something to look forward to other than a life of crime.
Thank you. Lieutenant Commander India.
Yeah, Paul, you won't find much argument from us here, but we must say from the last speaker, it can't be equally at all. We'll tend to agree with the MSJ. It has to be equitable, not equally, because each community and each Burgess has a different need. So needs analysis needs to be done. But how the legislation is proposed as it stands, if it works out properly, it should happen. It's left to be seen. But on top of that, you have to have a proper management, because we have to make sure that the budget is balanced. There are no corruption issues in there. And as the former speaker was saying, there are so many loopholes sometimes. So we have to look at the legislation a little more with a fine-tooth comb to see and close.
What's a loophole you can identify? I'm presuming you came to this forum having looked at the legislation. What do you think is a major loophole?
I haven't looked at the legislation in detail, but there are some loopholes there where the money, some of the taxes being collected has to go back into central government. When that money goes back into central government, how it is disbursed has to be looked at, because central government, yes, we understand that that's how government gets their money and fixes things. But that money coming back into central, if you're saying that the money is supposed to be for the local and regional government to do the things in their burgesses, which is fine, but that about the money that is going back into the consolidated fund, when it is diverse, is it going to be used for something else at a higher policy, or what is it? Because if you are saying to me that it's to be collected for the local people and the burgesses to be used, we need to know what percentage is going to come back and what percentage is going to be used at central government. Because I'm hoping that the monies that are using at local government will be used in the burgesses to bring the burgesses to where they're supposed to be. And we have mechanisms in place already. We need to ask ourselves why the mechanisms are failing. So our councillors need to recognize that they need to be out there more and find out what the burgesses needs. Because in some communities, as the previous speaker was saying, you will not need a green park. They're green parks already. But there are other communities that are deprived that needs those things. They need schools, they need green parks, and they need those things. So the money needs to be diverse equitably, not equally.
Let me start with Philip on this one. This is a local government election, but many have suggested there are many national issues. We dealt with crime as one of them. What is your party's perspective? Because in many cases, the issues related to on the local scale are related to the issues that we have as a country on the national scale. What is your party's perspective on the major challenges facing us economically in Trinidad and Tobago? I'll start with Philip on this.
Main challenges facing us economically is a lack of vision at a national level. We are not international development. Our national infrastructure has not kept pace with our population growth. Neither has our national development plans for our people. Not one political party that has held office has ever had a vision for Trinidad and Tobago and its people outside of, look, oil and gas coming out of the ground, let's make money off of it. How about we develop the human capital of Trinidad and Tobago and focus on what makes us unique, do a strengths and weakness analysis of the people, see what we're most likely and capable of. Where we located on the globe provides us with a lot of opportunities. Our climate, the relationships.
Administration done just that pestle and SWOT analysis, looking at our location, our competitive advantages, but we still are heavily dependent on oil and gas.
Because they come up with, and I remember a former PNM General Secretary saying to me that we are very good at doing surveys and coming up with the right information, but not using it. So if we have the information and we could speak to it intelligently, then the first step, we've done the first step. Now is to use it and put it to work for us. I just heard somebody say that not every community needs green spaces. I can't think of a community that wouldn't need a green space. Green space is important to national development because it's important to community development. Because people could sit down and exchange ideas and de-stress after the day, play a little sports, the elders could go for a walk. All of these things need to come back into the conversation. We've turned Trinidadians into consumers and laborers. We need to look at them as people again. People have needs. In our development of our economy, those needs need to be represented. We've lost our culture to China. We pretend that we still have carnival, but it is imported from China. That's not the same thing. Carnival used to be 6 months of people wire bending and sticking and gluing and designing and making. Why can't we go back to that? Why couldn't we subsidize that the way the Chinese government subsidized the cost of them manufacturing our carnival? We could get to a place where Trinidad makes sense to all Trinbagonians again, where every creed and race could actually find an equal place. But it's going to start with us looking at an economy that makes sure that foreign exchange, that credit is available to everybody so that we could develop Trinidad and Tobago for all.
Patrick Watson, what are the major economic challenges facing TNT?
Well, I will just continue. I'm not in any way going to contradict what Philip said, but I'll probably dig deeper into some. The most fundamental problem facing us, the solution for which can begin at the local level, is the problem of economic diversification, allied to the need to create different sources of foreign exchange earning on which we are crucially dependent. We continue to believe that oil and gas will be our savior. I mean, the Patrick Manning government used to repeat that over.
I saw an economic bank bulletin recently, and this is putting everybody, that says despite trillions of dollars spent, only 11.6% of the world's energy sources are championed by renewable energy. It's still coal, oil, and gas primarily, and will be that for decades to come.
That is a fact, and that's notwithstanding the Paris Accords, to which we are all signatories, where we are saying we want to cut down.
So oil and gas will be used around the world for decades to come.
Yes, no. Don't feel that I am saying that we must stop it. That is not so. Well, we must certainly find different sources of foreign exchange so that all our foreign exchange, which is fundamentally the truth in this country, our entire source of foreign exchange is oil and gas. That's not fully true, but that is a good approximation. And I grew up hearing about diversification. I grew up hearing about different sources of foreign exchange, and it has just never happened. And it is because, and the PNM has been in power for most of that time, but the largest chunk of that time. And we go on, and only recently things were going, that we are producing less and less oil. And even if the price is right, we are not selling, we are not gaining from it as we ought to. The biggest one recently, because of our unfortunate situation in Ukraine, we benefited from a relatively high price. And we can't go on hoping to depend on people's discomfort and people's problems to earn our living. And that is exactly what has happened here. And of course, that is not going to last forever. We must find a way out of this, and there is no effort. And whatever you know, whatever you think about it, our foreign exchange is slipping away little by little. The numbers are falling daily, notwithstanding the little mini boom that we got from the Ukraine crisis. We are unable to provide foreign exchange, and most of those people who produce here and they sell abroad, they are net losers of foreign exchange. Notwithstanding the fact that they are better than those who depend exclusively on. Well, I'm going to say, I think I've said what I have to say on that.
Finance, what's the biggest economic challenge facing this country?
Well, I want to agree with Dr. Watson. So the whole question of diversification is key. Indonesia used to be a net exporter of energy, and they are now a big importer. And Trinidad and Tobago is headed in a similar direction. The oil is dwindling, and the gas is also under some stress. So we have to look at other sources of how we're going to replace that. And I think
production levels also, even though the prices are higher now, commodity prices, but our production levels are abysmal. Well, look, let me not say abysmal.
Right. So the thing is that key is investing in our human resources, right? Because part of Trinidad's problem is, if you look at what's happening in the world now, spend on research and development is a big thing that is financing new products, improving older products, and so on. And that is how you get to sell to markets out there, right? So if we're not doing any R&D, then we are basically a primary exporter, because we are not, we have no other resources to sell to the world. But so we have to know. I mean, I can mention I actually own a software development company, right? And we export to 21 countries, and we earn significant foreign exchange above our needs, right? So and it's a diversified play, because
why is that not a model for other entrepreneurs to expand into and be facilitated by the state to earn more foreign exchange? I know I look into your time, so I'll give you 45 more seconds.
Right. So, well, the thing is the supporting infrastructure by the state for they have a lot of talented people in Trinidad with many ideas that can gain foreign exchange. I think when one of the things is, I think that should be exposed to the public. That was never done. I know a lot of the public went to the Economic Development Board with many ideas for how Trinidad can be transformed. And remember, Dr. Farrell, and they abandoned that because, of course, the government wasn't taking them on. It was a pappy show. But there were many ideas that were taken to that forum around what we can do to improve our economic situation. And I feel that we should really make an attempt to have Dr. Farrell and the, notwithstanding it was for the government, publish some of what was done there. And maybe that can help us see some of the things that we can really get into that can help. I myself went there with I myself went there with an idea with Archbishop concerning the Triniland, which was a cultural theme park, right? That had great possibilities, and of course, all of that was buried in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you. Lieutenant Commander India. Biggest challenges economically facing the country.
Well, Paul, we have to first of all be real. Our economy is heavily based on oil and gas, and that's predominantly where we get our income from. But we have our deals before from previous administrations has put us in a place that we are seeing today, because they have brokered deals where everything is on the downstream side of the economy, not on where we exploration. Because right now, oil is dwindling, gas is dwindling. Our trains, we do not even have enough gas to supply our local demand. And we have deals where we have to give foreigners, those foreign investments, the gas that we produce. So in order for us to actually be able to get anything out of this, we need now to put more emphasis on exploration. That's where we are. Now, we're not going to talk about diversification of the economy. That's something else. But you're asking where we are and what is our problem. But our problem is that our deals that we didn't cut a good deal for us for Trinidad and Tobago. The deals were really for the big oil giants and the companies and the downstream industry that are not us. The methanol companies, the fertilizer companies. We don't have enough for our own manufacturing agencies. So we need to go back to the table, have better deals, and we need, if we are looking at oil and gas specifically, we need to look at exploration. When it comes to diversification of the economy, there are so many other things that are there. The policies are there, they just have been shelved or not prioritized. We have a fishing industry, we have a 200-mile economic fishing zone, and we don't utilize it. All the fishing that comes into Trinidad and Tobago, it is exported abroad. You ask yourself around certain times, why are we paying so much for fishing? Because the fishing, we don't have big fishing fleets here, and the big fishing fleets and longliners that actually come to Trinidad and Tobago, everything is exported. We could do wave generation for energy. We in a country, we haven't recognized also our strategic importance of where we are globally. And that has gone back. And I don't want to see this, but if you look at it, this was done even way back in the slave trade. They recognize our importance of where we are. Things came from East, from Africa, came to Trinidad and Tobago and were dispersed over. We have big ships coming in, post-Panamax vessels, hub and spoke wheel, where ships can come in here and we can transship goods all over. And these are some of the things, recognizing that Trinidad and Tobago is an island, embracing it, embracing that we have to look at our maritime.
15 seconds. You have some time. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So there's so many other things that we can do when it comes to diversification. However, the fundamental thing, safety and security. We will not have investment if we don't feel safe.
Open forum for the last 5 minutes in this segment before we move on to governance and government. We have Louis Singh and Lauren Couchet standing by. Now, the proposal is that, according to law, the local government bodies will collect the money. There are concerns about whether or not it should pass through the consolidated fund at any level, and hopefully this money will redound directly, be able to be used by the corporation and regional bodies to effect real change, to provide consistent services and some level of infrastructural development in these regional bodies. I will say it plainly, it's not something I'm proud to say. We have a corruption issue in Trinidad and Tobago. Timothy Hammersmith mentioned it earlier on. We can't bury our heads in the sand where that is concerned. There are issues related to audited financials from regional bodies, the allegations of corruption in specific regional bodies, etc. And now we're putting money directly into their hands and hoping that we don't have the recurring decimal of corrupt practices, corrupt officials, etc., swindling away the money and it not reaching the burgesses and the citizens for their benefit. What are your perspectives? And this is an open forum, so you can jump in as you like, on what accountability and transparency mechanisms should be in place regarding local government bodies, so that we don't end up in 5 years talking about, well, we put money in their hand and all disappear into corrupt practices.
Let me start, Paul. I think corruption is a national issue, and in fact, the worst offenders are those at the national levels. They may even use their transfers to local government bodies on a corrupt basis. There is nothing that happens here that isn't a kickback involved, and so on. So to pass that on to the local governments, I find is a little bit unfair. I am not saying, don't get me wrong, that I am not in any way denying that is so, but there's the monkey see, monkey do, and especially as if it's happening at the higher level, everybody feels that they can do it.
We've had ghost gangs and all sorts of stuff. Let's not pretend it doesn't exist.
Paul, when you say a free commentary, we can jump in at any time, or we have to wait on you to note to us?
No, you can jump in at any time with respect.
To Professor Watson, he is always spot on, he is always bright, but he comes across as archaic because he seems to think that the past equals the present or the future. Corruption could end today. If we wanted corruption to end today, we need to start charging white-collar criminals. We need to name them and shame them. We need to take that campaign to the Chamber of Commerce and the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association and DOMA. Come on, let's be real. It's not the little poor black hen chicken committing corrupt crimes. Take it where it is happening. We need corruption law with teeth. Our Integrity in Public Life Act does not create the environment that it sought to do. The procurement legislation that was just passed into law was gutted. If you look at predial larceny, people talk about predial larceny. The Progressive Empowerment Party has been saying for years, the same way if you get catch with 5 cases of Johnny Walker Black in your trunk, if you don't have a license, police can unlock you up. But you could park up on the side of the road with a 3-ton truck full of avocado and nobody asking you where you get the avocado from. The day you lock up 1 truckload of plantain or avocado or pumpkin on the side of the road, all predial larceny done in the country. We could fix it. You, Paul Richards, you speak brilliantly in the Senate. You say these things in the Senate all the time. And I just want to, I'll close with this. I'll close with this. You, Paul Richards, know in the Senate that you speak to these issues all the time, and that if we wanted to, we could have fixed it. I want to tell my colleagues on the other side, when the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to treat every problem as a nail. You can't lock up green space. You can't lock up flooding. You have to deal with it from a national level at a local level if you want to fix it. You can fix it.
Do I agree? Then
I think the whole question of oversight is a general national issue that we need to address, right? Where we have independent bodies having oversight over even the burgesses at the local government level.
They don't work effectively, Gregory.
Well, you know, to me, it's a matter of empowerment of using a term there, Philip Party, but it's empowerment of giving people the teeth, you know, to be able to bite, right? Because you know, I was just reading that the Taliban was able to shut down the poppy fields and the other things in Afghanistan, and that they were trying. The Americans were there and others were there trying to do it for decades, and the Taliban came in and in 2 tours it was done. So to me, part of what is required is that people have the will to do what they need to do, you know,
but that's a big if, because if we depend on the will to do the right thing in this country,
police cannot enforce laws that don't exist. I remember during the lockdown when the little Turan from Kokorit was locked up by the beach, the people in Bayside on the other side of the wall was allowed to fight because they weren't correct laws.
Philip, let Lindy have a comment, please.
You see, obviously this speaker was not listening to the previous round on crime and criminality, and is not aware of how the system works. If you understand how the system works,
I hope I can answer him because he's referring to me.
We have laws in Trinidad and Tobago, and you have to understand how evidence and how you proceed, how the procedural ways for evidence. So there are laws. We know what to do. And as Gregory was saying, Gregory is not giving the laws teaching. The law is there. It is putting the correct people in place, having the people selected for duty in the correct forum, and the people that will be able to do their duty without fear or favor or implications of being pressured by the political powers. So it is fair. It is equitable.
So what are you saying, Lieutenant India, that for 60 years we have not had the structures and the laws and the right people because we have a history of corruption?
I'm saying to you, Paul, we have the correct laws. Yes, some of them are archaic and some need to be changed because we have the bicycle regulation.
Well, why have there been so much corruption in this country?
There I'm going to go and tell you the answer. The answer is because of political interference, because our independent bodies have not been able to act independently without...
Paul, I would like to jump in, please.
Because you have the Chief of Defense Staff being appointed by the Prime Minister. You have the Commissioner of Police being appointed by the Prime Minister. You have the AG's office being appointed. So you have every single independent body in Trinidad and Tobago being evaluated by the politicians. So when you have those things...
Prime Minister is an elected monarch.
Paul, I'd like to jump in, please.
Afraid to come in and do their duty. They need to do their duty.
If Lieutenant Dindial said that these things exist, when other people were beneficiaries of it, why they didn't speak to those issues then? Why they didn't speak to the issue that the Prime Minister appoints the Commissioner and the Attorney General and all of the judges and all of the systems that govern the judges and everything else? Why is it that only when people are fired from public office, they suddenly find their morality and their integrity and their common sense? Well, these are things that should have been dealt with a long time ago. This should have been dealt with a long time ago. I heard people talking about exploration. In Brazil, they just increased all, I would like to finish. In Brazil, they just increased their net output of oil and gas just by proper maintenance of the systems. You asked a good question there, Paul. If we have the rules, why we don't have the systems? Systems don't require special people. Systems are self-governing and you could provide oversight to systems. It doesn't require any special specific names, any specific brands. What you need is a proper system of governance and enforce it.
The good thing about it is that I have the control of all the microphones here. So if I want to stop anybody from talking, I don't want to do that, but I could do that.
So Paul,
I just have one statement.
Let Gregory go, please.
One statement to make, which is that clearly one of the biggest problems we have is that we have a parliamentary dictatorship. Right? Everybody just spoke about
prime ministerial dictatorship.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Prime
Yes,
ministerial
totally agree
dictatorship.
there.
That's the word.
In
Prime
agreement.
ministerial dictatorship. And I think that if everybody agrees that we need to deal with that, that could help us start solving the problem.
Correct.
How would we deal with that if PNM and UNC fails to deal with that when they get into government? How? If we talk it here and then somebody gets into government and forget that they promised recall and reform and campaign finance reform and they promised fixed election dates. We know the things to fix outside here, and then we get into office and we get the blue lights and we get the salary and we forget that this is what we promised to do. The Progressive Empowerment Party wants to fix all of that.
So Paul,
All right, guys, we got to end this segment. We have another segment standing by.
Paul,
Final comment from Dindial. Go ahead, please.
So Paul, I just wanted to answer that question you asked, how we are going to fix it, how are we going to get proper people in place. The NT has proposed, and this is what we are saying, that once there is a situation or once we are in service, all state boards, we are thinking that from the state boards must have representation from the opposition and from independents. The state boards must never be just the government in power. So that
I
you
have agreed with that for decades.
accountability for that.
Yeah, I've always said state boards should have government appointed persons appointed, at least one person appointed by the opposition, and from civil society, professional bodies should appoint persons on state boards for accountability and check and balances. All right, guys, thank you. We got to take a break. We have a newscast coming up, and then we'll be joined by Louis Leasing and Lauren Poucher. We continue our digital debate series right here on Power 102 Digital. Like I want to stress more in the last half of it. Well, doesn't seem the newscast is going to go. Good morning and welcome back. We would like to welcome former Mayor of Port of Spain, Louis Leasing, and of course from the NTA, Lauren Poucher.
Yeah,
thank you so much. And Felicia joins us. And Lieutenant Commander Dindial is still here. This segment is about government and local government and governance specifically. I'm hearing somebody in the background here making a lot of noise. So I'm hoping that somebody can mute their microphone. Right. And welcome back. Let me start with former Mayor Leasing. Thank you for joining us this morning. You were Mayor of Port of Spain. I'm sure that you have seen the legislation. Do you think it will make a difference? I don't know whose mic that is, but
I think that's Philip's mic. That's Philip's mic.
Is it
My mic is muted, and
no, Philip's mic is muted, so I don't know whose mic that is. But I'm hoping they can mute it so we don't have that disturbance. Mr. Leasing, do you think, given what you've seen of the Local Reform Act, it will actually be down to transformation into how local government bodies operate?
Absolutely not. I think we would only get meaningful change in local government when local government is given full, true, and meaningful autonomy. As we speak this morning, local government is about central government. All the controls, all the things that will make local government possible in its purest manifestation continue to reside in central government. And therefore, it is once again another attempt by the party that has managed local government throughout its life in Trinidad to control local government. I want to remind viewers and participants, there was a time the city was literally the government of the country. And with the introduction of party politics as it has come to be, gradually that power that local government once had was whittled away. We are talking this morning, Paul, and I'm staying on the topic that citizen and human development and local government. My own feeling is that if you begin and your foundation is bad, you will always have a bad wall. Visualize a mason putting up a wall. And if he does not put down a good foundation, or she does not put down a good foundation, you would never get a nice, straight, strong, and sturdy wall. And that is what has happened with local government over the years. Across party lines, they have reserved the worst people for local government. But the same can be said true of central government. And that is why the pot really can't call the kettle back. In addition to that, because we have extremely bad members of parliament and senators, we want to have even worse councillors, because my experience is that the MPs lord over the councillors, even though the councillors are elected to serve the people. And it is one of the reasons why I was driven to write the book, Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People. Visualize, an MP is elected.
10 seconds for the vote.
But so is the councillor. But the councillor never seems to have the kind of wherewithal to do his job, largely because of the central government and the MPs.
Thank you. Lauren Fouché, your thoughts.
Well, I would like to go back to the beginning, because you spoke about citizen and human development and as it relates to local government. Remember, each community starts with an individual who then develops into a family, who then develops into having their little businesses or their little areas, schools, and so on. So we develop into a community. And therefore, we need to understand what is the need of the individual. And if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first basic need that we have is shelter, sleep, clothing, etc. And those are the physiological needs. Do we provide that for our people? Does local government provide that for our people? The second one is safety needs, personal security, employment, etc., resources. Then, of course, the whole thing about the community coming together with an intimacy and a sense of connection. And then we look at esteem, my own self-esteem, my respect for myself. And then a self-actualization, which is the last rung, which is desire to become the most that one can be. However, do we provide the opportunities for those things to be relevant in the communities? We have been traditionally over the years, dependency syndrome. We all know what the dependency syndrome. Everybody has been inculcated into this dependency syndrome. If it's not handouts, if it's not working in a gang and it's a ghost gang, you refer to that yourself, Paul. How can we expect the proper development when the psyche of our people is not where it should be in progress? Now, for the National Transformation Alliance, our focus is on community empowerment. That is what one of our focus is going to be. Apart from all what has been spoken about before, we want to focus on how do we empower communities to become the best that they can be, to be the link between, and we have an empowerment committee, to be the link between the community personnel and government. We, as the what we call political party or political body, should be the conduit and the link between those two. Therefore, what we have formed is an empowerment committee, and we also have ambassadors. We call them ACEs. And we want to be the bridge between the communities and the central government to be able to help the communities to become self-sufficient, to have a voice, and to speak about their needs in a way that they can be heard.
Felicia Holder, welcome back.
Thank you, Paul. when I think, and when we talk human development and capital development, you think about the knowledge, the skills, the healthcare, all that contribute to them being contributing members of society. And when you look at it on a local government level, earlier I spoke about a constituency board of supervisors. As it's set up right now, we say a nation is a collection of communities. And looking within our communities right now, these communities are not able to properly sustain themselves. Somebody mentioned in the first half of the panel about the 42% of students who would have failed out of the system. How is that being addressed? Knowledge is part of education, and there are so many people and communities being left behind and neglected. The fact that we have an education system that separates people based on social status, etc., is something that we as a party are saying that it needs to end. Children should not be forced to undergo an exam that takes you from primary to secondary level. They should be able to transition seamlessly without that pressure. All children should have access to the same level of education. Mukarapo and Fatima shouldn't be separated from how they perform just because they're right across the road from each other. So why is one a high performing school versus the other? They both fall within the same district. We're not looking at developing those who have been left behind. The skills, we talk about higher education and skills training. Many people need these skills or they need to be invested in so that they can go about and start their own businesses. We're not talking about empowering people. We spoke before about poverty. We're not providing opportunities for entrepreneurship and home ownership. And I want to talk about that because we have communities where people don't feel as though they have a stake in their communities. What our plan for local government involves is bringing all of that back to the communities. We're talking about security, but it can't just be national security and it can't just be policing either. It needs to be security. Your roads, it needs to be your parks, everything. You need to feel as though you're living in a community where you're thriving and where you can be a contributing member of society. Local government, the way it is right now, definitely needs to be reformed and integrated in such a way where all of these systems coexist and contribute to the human capital within these communities moving forward. And that's the only way we can move forward as a nation and a collective.
Thank you. Lumini Singh, as someone who has been at a high position in Port of Spain Regional Corporation, what needs to be put in place to hold councillors and aldermen and CEOs and the entire corporation more accountable to the people?
That's an excellent point. It comes back always to the quality of people that you put into office. During my tenure, the 39 months that I served as mayor, we had 24 town meetings in the city of Port of Spain. Literally, if you take the months away for Carnival and Easter and Christmas and what have you, Diwali, we literally had a meeting a month in which we reported to the people on changes, developments, but more importantly, we listened to the challenges in each district within the city. I would say to you further, where the new act is wanting, it does not mandate and put into the regulations or the law the responsibility for the council or the regional corporation to report and communicate with burgesses on a scheduled basis. I remember as mayor, particularly during the first year, I said, listen, I want to present the city's budget. And we did it. And we consistently were able to take the budget, what we are going to do with the limited resources that we got. And it is always a question of limited resources. When one contemplates that Port of Spain has 26 parks and squares, and you're getting a measly sum from the Ministry of Finance, you wonder how can you maintain these parks and squares in an organized way? But that is the question of maintaining the parks and squares is one aspect of it. But how do you put the parks and squares to use? And I remember well, when I got in there, the carnival bands would be using the parks and squares for carnival. While they are making the millions, the parks and squares were left to be cleaned by us and so on and so forth. So I decided to begin to put a fee for the use of the parks and squares. And they were all up in arms, but they paid it. They paid it. When you cannot put up a sign in the city without the approval of the council,
Specifically, you said elect the right people, but people also need to be governed by systems and regulations and accountability mechanisms.
That is also true. It is a combination of things. Let me make the point. I've always said that when crumbs are sharing in Port of Spain, i.e. in the cabinet room, not even the dust that falls from the crumbs makes its way to the rural districts of Trinidad and Tobago. And this is a case I argue all the time as I fight my battles to develop land shares on the North Coast. We've got to recognize that the development of the people is not just something you talk about. It is something that must be lived meaningfully at all levels of the society.
Put a pin.
What? Sorry.
Lauren, your party's perspective on how to hold aldermen, councillors, CEOs, mayors more accountable in terms of deliverables to the people, because a lot is riding on this property tax collection. I am the firm believer that if you're collecting taxes from people, right now we pay a road. Do we still pay the road tax?
I believe we do.
Yeah, and the roads are atrocious. And many of the roads, most of the roads are atrocious. So what accountability mechanisms should be put in place at these corporations to ensure delivery?
Well, you know, it goes back to what our previous speaker spoke about. If everything is controlled, all the finances are controlled by central government, it is extremely difficult to hold your aldermen, your councillors, and so on, because you're holding them.
Now they're collecting property tax and spending property tax themselves at some level.
Yeah. You see, if the area, the district is being given its money to manage, then you can hold them accountable. But when it is that you have to depend on the little fallout or the kakada that they're giving you to do what you have to do because they have bigger contractors that they need to pay, so therefore they want to be in control of that. That's the problem. You need to have the responsibility for the delivery of the goods and services should be within the local government, and it should be within the councillors at that particular place.
But the law, as envisioned to me,
them to deal with it, and then they account back.
But the law to me states that the money is collected through property tax from the 14 corporations are to be spent by the corporations for the delivery of more services and infrastructure at some level to the burgesses. So when that money now is going into their hands, do you have doubts about that? Is that it?
Of course, I have doubts about that. Paul, you really expect that when they collect the property tax, they're going to give it to the burgesses to manage the boroughs to manage their business?
Well, that's
you really
what they're going to do.
Let us wait to see if they will do that. But they should do that, because that is the only way that you can hold persons accountable. And you also have the Auditor General has to be auditing the books and services. They have to be auditing what is spent and what was delivered. You know, and we don't do those things. We just give out money and we just say, okay, and we hope that it is spent where it's supposed to be spent. There has to be a system put in place. There has to be a system put in place. But we also need to educate. We also need to educate the persons in the various communities that they must not see the councillor or the alderman as the lowest rung of the ladder. These are the people that can be empowered to create a certain catalyst and a certain movement within the various constituencies, within the various PDs, within the various councils, that these people need to know that they are quite capable of effecting change. But we have to help them remove themselves from the dependency syndrome, and whatever I get, I will deal with that. We have to help them to be able to understand that the vision for what they want for their community must come from them, and the National Transformation Committee is focused on being the conduit for that towards central government through the political processes that we will be engaged in.
Felicia Holder, what mechanisms should be in place? Because what's going to happen, what has happened in the past, is a particular councillor is voted in. You don't see the councillor in many cases, or most cases. When you see the councillor, you say, well, they ain't giving the money to do this and that. So he passes the buck to the regional corporation, the mayor or the CEO, who passes the buck to the MP and the government in power at the time. And meantime, nothing gets done, or very little gets done, or it's inconsistent at best.
Well, Paul, you just answered the question. If we know for all of these years that we've been doing it like this and it's not working, why are we still doing it like this?
But there's a Reform Act. Do you think the Reform Act will make a change where that is concerned? If so, why so? If not, why not?
No, because if so, why are we still trying to fix what is I have to refer to as a sinking ship. I mentioned, and I have to circle back to this. We're talking about works to be carried out in a constituency. The plan that the Progressive Empowerment has in terms of implementing a constituency board of supervisors would see that each division that has works to carry out within the constituency is allocated a budget. They, at budget time, they have to say what it is they are going to execute within that district, within that constituency. And the next budget reading, we're supposed to be looking at it and saying, okay, you would have identified these 10 works to be done in the district of Port of Spain. What has been accomplished? What has been done since then? Our budget readings at budget time is not that. We're not looking at what we propose to do versus what has actually happened. The issue of resources and stifling resources. If you have a constituency board of supervisors, somebody in charge of public works within that constituency, they have a budget and that's allocated, and they have they can outline and say what it is they're going to do within the constituency. And we can judge them based on that. As it is right now, what levels and what mechanism does this
what should be your recourse as a Burgess or a citizen if you're not getting the services you're paying, because you're paying for it through taxes, other taxes, and you're paying through it now, or you're going to pay for it through property tax?
Fire them and recall. Recall legislation is something that we do not have in this country. I do not understand why, because we have so many underperforming ministers. We have so many underperforming members of parliament. We have so much underperformance happening in this country, and there's no mechanism by which to fire them except waiting. In any industry, you don't do your job and you're fired. The government and members of parliament are the only people who I can see who can not perform constantly and still have a job, like councillors as well.
We have 6 minutes left. I'll go to Louis Leasing first. What should Burgesses and citizens demand? And I'm going to ask this question of all three of you. Demand in the next year, year and a half from their representatives. Demand. And if not, we have to find a way to make those persons accountable. What should be the demand? Because very often we become apathetic in Trinidad and Tobago. Well, that's how it is, and we just accept it. We just accept the poor service. We just accept the poor infrastructure. We accept the fact that we're living sometimes in squalor because we don't feel we have agency to deal with persons who are not performing. I'll start with Mr. Leasing on this.
Paul, let me first of all say, we have never truly put people first in Trinidad at any level of governance. And we have taken, as it were, shortcuts in enabling true and meaningful development. It has always been window dressing. Nobody, when you look at the Prime Minister's Best Village trophy, that is an extremely good transformation vehicle. But what do we see of it and what do we get out of it? The whole process, nobody understands the process fully, and nobody has sought to examine whether the process in producing the Prime Minister's Best Village trophy is in fact a process that we can utilize for development in Carnival and so on and so forth, or vice versa. Let me say to you, we have always collected property tax, and I want to go back to that deliberately. But the property tax has never redounded to the benefit of the burgesses of any region or city or borough. At Hope, we propose to create and encourage true and meaningful governance at the level of local government. Local government is the only form of government in Trinidad because you can't do it at a state board, you can't do it anywhere. But you could go to the statutory meeting of any local government body and standing in the gallery, ask and call the attention of the chair to make a concern and to articulate a concern and seek corrective action. I want to give an illustration of how it is important for people to communicate and work with the communities. When we got into the office back in 2010, there were these big, huge dumpsters all over the place. I don't know if you remember them. We had one on Piccadilly Street, almost halfway in the road sometimes, which encouraged roaches, rodents, and ants, and a stinking smell, to use a strong word, stench for miles wide. What we did, certainly inquired, why are we using those dumpsters? And I was told that it was so because these were servicing inaccessible areas. But I grew up in Port of Spain, and I know East Dry River well. And I never knew that we had those dumpsters before they came at a certain period. And we, through our town meetings, through our community meetings, we were able to establish that people really wanted their garbage collected at their door. So the question was, how did we find a formula to returning to that process? And we did. We created a system where for inaccessible areas, where we contracted people from the district who had small vehicles, who was prepared to set up a small business moving garbage. And it worked so much so it is now something that others in other regions are looking at. I'm saying to you, if you cannot do the job, do not volunteer for it. And over the years, the parties have given to the people who truly cannot do the job. And so at all levels of governance in this country, we are being shortchanged. People have been picking our pockets and leaving us much worse than when they met us.
Thank you, Mr. Lee Singh. Felicia, final words?
Responsibility comes with accountability. And I want to go further from what Mr. Louis Singh just said and go further and say, if you can't, not just if you can't do the job, don't volunteer for it, but if you can't do the job, we should have the ability to fire you. We should have the ability to say, you are not performing, you're not delivering on your promises, we need you out of office. This is the only government, is the only form of transactional payments where you pay money and you don't see the results and you can't go after them. We need to strengthen the anti-corruption and the fraud squad. We need to go after white-collar criminals. We spoke about corruption. All of these things, they're intertwined and they contribute to the failures of our society. It contributes to the failures on a central and a local government level. And we as the people just simply need to start demanding more. I know as a tax-paying citizen what I'm entitled to. I'm seeing that I'm not entitled to it. And my way of saying that I want better is being a part of the Progressive Empowerment Party. We have 61 candidates that we're feeling across Trinidad and Tobago who believe in the same thing. We have 61 candidates who say we don't want the red, we don't want the yellow, we simply want a better Trinidad and Tobago. The policies that we stand for, responsible governance, accountability, recall. This is the things that people see as strong. These are the things that we need as a nation to take us forward. Or else we will continue spinning top in mud. We will be talking reform, we'll be talking budget allocation and simply going nowhere. It is time to start demanding more as people.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time and your contribution, Felicia. And Lauren Pouchet, last but by no means least.
My last words will be that central government sets the tone. They do not account to us for how our money is spent. Every budget, we hear about what they're going to do, what they have allocated, and we hear nothing about how the monies have been used in the past to the benefit of the people. All taxes collected in this country go into the central government. That's our money. It is not their money that they're spending. It is our money. And I would like to echo what Felicia said. Accountability is critical. Accountability is very critical at all levels. Therefore, if central government can be accountable and can provide the funds to the burgesses to be used, then obviously there should be put systems in place for accountability there, and that will trickle down. But we need to deal with all the other areas, the fraud, the kickbacks, all the different things that have been affecting this country. So people feel that we have a nation in trauma. We have a nation in trauma who are just in survival mode. They don't even know that they have the power to do what they can do. And I will encourage every single person out there to use the only power that is available to you right now, which is your finger, and go and vote for the National Transformation Alliance, our 31 candidates who are great candidates and are already doing work within the communities, have been doing work even before they became our candidates. We want you to go and utilize your power, your strength. That is all you have right now, is the vote. So please come out and vote. Don't let our statistics be like it has been in the past, where 30 or 35% of people vote for local government elections. We need to use our voice. The only voice that we have is the vote right now.
Thank you so much. And we'd like to thank all our participants today, from the National Transformation Alliance, Gary Griffith, the political leader, Lieutenant Commander Norman Dindale, and Lauren Pouchet, who you just heard from the Movement for Social Justice, David Abdullah, and the Gregory Finance, from Hope, Timothy Hammer-Smith, Professor Patrick Watson, and former Mayor Louis Leasing, and from the PEP, Felicia Holder and Philip Alexander. On behalf of the entire team at Power 102 Digital, we thank you for being a part of it. We intend to have 2 more. The next one being hopefully on Wednesday, July 19th. We've extended invitations to also the 2 major political parties, and we're extending an invitation to the independent candidates also contesting local government election, where we can have a hopefully reasonable discussion, differ respectfully in views, because that's what democracy is about, and have a different kind of discourse on the issues facing the citizens in Trinidad and Tobago on the local level, local government level, and also the national level. Thank you for being a part of our program. Up next, Charles will take you through the mid-morning, and have a great day, and please be safe.
You too. You too. Bye, Paul.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
The digital evolution is here. Power 102 is leading the way once again. Welcome to Power 102 Digital, the future.